My entitled mom literally changed her plans just to ruin my birthday, as I was just trying to plan out my 21st birthday in a way that I would enjoy. But regardless, my mom went out of her way to ruin everything, and now I'm incredibly pissed off and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. For a bit of context, I turned 21 on Monday. I go to university, but I came home for the weekend as well as Monday because it's my birthday and because my parents were going to be out of town. My mom wanted to go somewhere for Valentine's Day, and they were also going to be gone on my birthday. They wanted me to babysit my little brother and our dog, which, to be completely honest, I was totally fine with. I was honestly relieved they wouldn't be around, since the relationship between my mom and I is a bit testy. She's ruined a couple of my birthdays before, both over my brother. She yelled at me on my 16th birthday for not being happy enough because it was ruining the day for my brother, and she also yelled at me on my 20th birthday because I wanted to have a private dinner with my parents and she wanted to bring my brother along. So I was glad she wasn't going to be around, and I started making plans to celebrate my birthday as I wanted. I was going to walk dogs at the local shelter because the weather is supposed to be fantastic, and I absolutely love the dogs. I didn't want cake, so my sister and I were going to go to like some Asian bakery to get some red bean mochi, which is one of my favorites, as well as try these good-looking matcha lattes. I was also going to go into the city with my best friend and check out some cool thrift stores, and maybe try alcohol for the first time, which of course my mom would never allow it. My parents were supposed to leave Thursday night, but my mom suddenly changed her mind on Monday and decided that an exotic trip would be too expensive, and they went to a pro game in a nearby city instead. So basically, they're just gonna be gone for a night. So now we're already off to a bad start. My mom ignored that I wanted mochi and bought a cake, which is nice, but it's the kind that I don't like. And both her and my sister can't eat gluten. Plus my dad and brother don't like it that much either, since it has coffee in it. So it's a cake that no one can eat and nobody likes. We had another bad incident earlier because I walked dogs after work, which is something I had promised to do like 2 weeks prior. And I did this thinking that my parents would be out of town and that my brother and my dog would be watched by my aunt. I even double checked with my aunt to make sure that she was fine with this. Well, my parents got wind of this and they were pissed off. I then got 3 angry phone calls and 1 text message from mom saying that I'm too old to be this irresponsible by leaving my brother and my dog with my aunt, and to realize that my actions affect other people, which yeah, I guess I could have just called my parents first, but they don't like that I volunteered this shelter. My mom especially thinks that I care too much about these dogs. In fact, if they had it their way, they wouldn't want me at the shelter ever again. But then this evening, I got a series of text messages from my mom and my sister. Mom and dad might go to a church in this city that they're at right now, because this one homesteader YouTuber goes there, and my mom is obsessed with her. Like, she wants our house to look exactly like hers, and she wants to see this lady in person, which, I mean, whatever floats your boat, like, go for it. But now she wants my sister and I to stay home and babysit our brother and dog, and not leave until she and dad get back. But tomorrow was the day we were going to the Asian bakery to get our mochi. We can't go in the afternoon because my sister has to go back to her university town. And we told mom this, but I guess she just forgot. So am I in the right by being upset about this entire situation? I can't even celebrate my birthday like I had planned to do, and I'm being expected to prioritize my brother above my own birthday. Am I really being selfish for thinking this is wrong? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, from the sounds of it, and this is just my opinion here, I really think your mom did this on purpose. It seems like she absolutely wanted to axe your plans for some stupid reason. And she probably did this because you're 21 and this is like the drinking age. But regardless, this is not a good excuse. Like, she's done this before. So if I was in your situation, I would never plan my birthday around them ever again. I would go out of my way to make plans that don't involve them or have any way that they can like affect it at all. Specifically your mom, because it sounds like she has it out for you. So yeah, you're completely in the right for getting pissed off about this, because I would also be very pissed off about this. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My manager demanded that I follow the rules exactly as he tells me, so I decided to maliciously comply, putting him in a situation that he definitely didn't like. And now he's saying he's gonna write me up, despite the fact that I did things exactly as he wanted me to do them. And now I really just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so yesterday at exactly 5:00 p.m., I closed my register while there were still 8 people in line, and now my manager's acting like I personally tanked the economy. Now, this all started last week when I stayed 15 extra minutes because my coworker was stuck in traffic and the front end would have literally been empty, like customers just vibing in front of a dark register. I didn't even think about it, I just stayed behind. He literally dragged me into the office the next day and gave me a whole speech about payroll integrity and how I'm not authorized to work outside my scheduled shift. He kept saying structure like we're storming a beachfront instead of scanning frozen pizzas. So I said to him, okay, cool, I hear you. I will follow the schedule exactly as it is. Well, fast forward to yesterday and I'm in from 9 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock at night. Well, at nearly 4 in the afternoon, a cashier calls out because her kid threw up at school. Meanwhile, the manager is in the back counting inventory like he's guarding the nuclear codes. At around 4:45 p.m., the line really starts to build up. People are purchasing beer, ice cream. One lady's arguing about a coupon that expired back in like 2022, but no matter what I say, she still claims she always uses it. Not to mention the fact that the phone is ringing non-stop. But then maybe like 4 minutes until 5 o'clock, he pops out and says, oh hey, can you stay a little late until I find coverage? And I swear, I felt my brain pause. Because last week, staying late was a payroll crime. So I just calmly reminded him that I'm not authorized to work outside my scheduled shift, and I need to respect the structure. And when I said that, his face did that like really tight smile thing that I think you know what I'm talking about. But then 5 o'clock p.m. finally hits. I finish the transaction I'm on, I close the lane sign, and I start counting down my drawer. And people are still in line staring at me like I just canceled Christmas. I then said to him, sorry, store policy, and then I just kept moving about my business. I clocked out about 2 minutes past 5 because, you know, counting takes a second, don't yell at me. And you know what? On my way out, I could hear him behind the register asking the bagger how to override the coupon system, and I almost lost it. Apparently 3 customers abandoned full carts and walked out, and one was like $200 worth of groceries. The coupon lady demanded a manager, which is hilarious because he was the manager, and now he had to argue with her himself. Well, today he calls me in and says I embarrassed him, and I heard the store numbers, saying that I should have used common sense, but it's like, dude, common sense? Last week, common sense was insubordination, but now following his direct rule is insubordination. But he says that I knew exactly what he meant, and I don't remember him saying unless it's inconvenient for me. He then threatened to write me up for doing exactly what he told me to do. Meanwhile, next week's schedule magically has voluntary overtime approved, and it's funny how structure bends when it's his stress level on the line. The grocery bagger also keeps laughing every time he walks by, and honestly, that might be my only joy about all of this right now. I didn't yell and I just follow policy. Nothing more, nothing less. But somehow, despite all of this, I'm still the problem. Oh man, this would be like the one thing I would need to hear to start looking for another job. Screw that. This guy literally is trying to be like, hey, you need to stay late, but also if you stay late, I'm gonna write you up. It's like, dude, what are we talking about? I'm either gonna get in trouble for staying late and helping my coworkers, which by the way is a normal thing to do, or I'm gonna listen to you exactly and still get in trouble for not staying behind. Like, my God, you do not get to have it both ways. And this entire situation would be more than enough for me to be like, okay, I am absolutely quitting this job. I'm finding anything else. I'm not gonna be in this position. Especially with a manager who's just going to mistreat you and try to blame pretty much everything on you. Today, I saw the true colors of a client after I missed 1 day of service, as she tried to claim to my boss that me missing this one time is somehow a pattern of me not doing my job right, which literally makes no sense as I've gone to her house every single time that she's been scheduled. And right now, I'm just honestly really pissed off about this and I don't know what to do. Here's how it all happened. Okay, so this just happened and I really feel like I need some passengers with me on this crazy train. And for the sake of the story, some names and minor details have been changed to protect privacy. To start things off, I'm an American female in my 30s and I work 2 jobs, one of them being housekeeping, and sometimes I work both on the same days. An example being that 1 or 2 days a week, I'll wake up at like 5 in the morning to be at my other job, finish around noon, and then immediately proceed to my other 2 clients for housekeeping, and then I'll be at home between 6 o'clock p.m. and 8 o'clock p.m. So I will have spent maybe over like half the day working and commuting. And yes, it's exhausting. Yeah, some days are a struggle, like what job isn't? But I do what I've got to do to keep my kitchen and my bills paid in full and on time. I actually like housekeeping as it keeps me busy, active, and I don't feel the days dragging. And I really enjoy seeing the fruits of my labor when it's all done. My clients are great and always assure me how much they appreciate my work and attention to detail. Now, clients designate a day for me to come over once a week or bi-weekly or even on a monthly basis. And this is all focused on the main company I work for since they give me consistent work. My schedule is often packed, but I'm pretty flexible when necessary, and I understand life throws throws the occasional crap at the occasional fan, and people have to reschedule a cleaning or cancel until further notice, which is totally fine, like I'm quite accommodating. Now then, I've cleaned for this one client who I will call Susan once a week for almost a year. She's younger than me and works from home, and has 3 timid but adorable, lovable cats. At the beginning of this, she asked I clean the litter box tumbler, you know, one of those rotating ones that kind of separates things, and she wanted me to do this when I visit and replace the litter box, and she said that she tipped me whenever I did it. Most housekeeping businesses don't want us doing litter boxes for obvious reasons, but I have the proper protection equipment and the bleach-free solutions to do it, so I agreed to do it. And this did take a while as it is heavy, but I eventually got the hang of it. Susan was cool and we got along really well. But today, my entire body was sore, and my ankle made it very clear that any weight put on it was met with corporal punishment, possibly even tendon damage. And this was to be one of my 12-hour work days, but my body was just shut down due to maintenance. So I called out of my morning job yesterday, and I knew I wouldn't be able to work, let alone drive in this condition. And then I told my cleaning one to reschedule my 2 regular clients today for an open slots that I have next week. And I apologize for the trouble, but I needed to rest to be on my A game again. Now, one of the co-owners, who I will call Dina, texted back saying no problem and to get a good rest. She was also very understanding because the huge job I underwent yesterday and the day before took a rough toll on me physically. And trust me, hold on to this one because this will be revisited soon. Well, after a couple of hours of a subpar nap, Dina sends me a text that says that Susan decided to cancel services and that I'll notice the updates on my schedule. I then said to her, okay, well, she did mention in the past that she was going to move out in a couple of months, so I guess she found a place. But guess what? That's not at all what happened. Dina said that actually she canceled because I missed my scheduled appointment today, also adding that Susan was being ridiculous. And I just looked at my phone confused, thinking to myself, what is going on? Because I was really not sure how this escalated so far. Dina then said, well, this is what we said. Hey Susan, this is Dina, the owner of the cleaning company. I pulled up our records and the original poster has made it out of 46 weeks in a row without missing a single visit. Not one. We've also accommodated multiple requests from you to shift dates and times, and we've done so to the best of our ability. So to categorize one cancellation due to a physical ailment as a pattern of last-minute cancellations is inaccurate, and it's not fair to someone who has shown up for you every single week for almost a whole year. So we wish you the best moving forward. When I read that, I thought, well crap, that sucks. And this really surprised me. Susan knows I work 2 jobs and how hard I work. I mean, even my coworkers and manager know that I don't miss work unless I have a really good reason. Some people have often texted me asking if I'm okay because they're genuinely worried about me. So for Susan to go from 0 to 100 like that, I'm not gonna lie, it really stings, as I did like her as a client and as a person. Now, you can't be friends with everyone, not that I want to be, but I like a good rapport with my clients. If someone came to do a service for me every week to my house, which is my safest space, folding up my underwear and other private things, I would want to be reasonably comfortable with them too. Okay, now stay with me. If you are still with me, grab a cookie and a drink because this is where things get a little interesting. You might be wondering, now what exactly was the reason I missed 3 jobs today? Well, your patience is about to be rewarded. 4 days ago, Dina offered me a job because one of the other housekeepers had an emergency and simply couldn't do it. Again, crap met the fan, I totally get it. It was a deep clean for a big Airbnb. I took the job, I loaded my inventory like I was ready for the final boss, and I was there 2 days later. We often go into these jobs blind, so it's best to be over-prepared than being under-prepared for whatever you might encounter. So after my usual 3-hour Wednesday client, I was off to the Airbnb. What I was not prepared for was this being a 3-story home, you know, with 4 bedrooms, 4.5 bathrooms, and 37 steps going to the 2nd and 3rd floor. And yeah, you can bet your butt I absolutely counted them. The beds were all king-sized and needed the old sheets washed and the new ones put on. Also, there was no washer and dryer installed yet, so I had to take all the bedding to the home next door that the client owned and go to the 2nd floor to do the laundry there, and then keep a timer just to stay on top of it. So to put it mildly, yeah, it was a lot to keep track of. Usually, we can only work in the time allotted on the application, and I finished in the 7.5 hours later given. I limp home before 9:00 p.m., and my boyfriend helps me get settled as my driving ankle, which has been giving me issues on and off for the past several months, is just full-blown done. I then had to organize the 140 before and after photos that I took, but I missed some of them as my phone died before we finished, and I fell asleep before I could upload them. Well, yesterday was my day off, and my body rebelled when I woke up, and I barely slept as the pain woke me up every single time I turned over. Dina texted me that afternoon to go back and finish, and I told her I was in quite a state after the previous day, but she said it had to be done before the photographer came, and she would try to get someone else so that I could rest. Well, long story short, my my boyfriend, who is the king among kings, offered to help me out. Dina then said this was okay, and I drove us there. And my god, I wanted to obliterate the stairs when I saw them again. Luckily, I pushed through and we finished in less than 4 hours, thanks to my man encouraging me the entire time. Now, he was the one who drove us home as my ankle was simply not having it, even with the brace on. Now, I felt bad having to miss 3 jobs and 3 additions to my paycheck, but I don't feel bad as to why it happened. It sucks to lose a client because of the limitations of my squishy human body, but when Dina mentioned that Susan called me skipping today a pattern of cancellations, when there's irrefutable proof to the contrary, I've got to say it really bothered me. It reminds me of that Beyonce song Yes, where she sings about how she always says yes to her man when he asked her anything. Part of the chorus goes, "The first time I said no, it's like I never said yes." And that sums it up perfectly. Susan got 99 cleanings, and I just simply couldn't make one of them, which just goes to show you that she never really appreciated me in the first place. Oh man, I think it's probably a good thing that you lost Susan as a client because good lord, she clearly doesn't care or even understand why you didn't show up. If I had someone cleaning regularly and I developed some kind of friendship with them, even though they're working for me and I'm having them clean my house, I would be at least a little bit understanding as to why they couldn't show up. I would be like, oh my gosh, they never miss. This is totally fine. I wouldn't try to paint this as some kind of pattern and be like, oh, I am not happy right now. This is uncalled for. Bro, what are you talking about? They've literally gone to bat for you every single time. And the one time they can't make it, suddenly this is a huge issue? What's going on right now? That's incredibly selfish, and that's honestly so disrespectful because you've done a lot for her and she clearly just doesn't appreciate it. An entitled customer demands a refund and gets verbally aggressive about the food and restaurant they just ate at. And despite the fact that they cleaned their plates off and literally sat there eating the entire time, this customer is still pissed off about this, saying that it's not what they want and they demand a refund. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, I went out for Valentine's Day with my partner to a lovely, local, family-run Italian restaurant. I will preface this by saying that this restaurant is quite old, with an older generation running it, so they have a basic website and little to no social media. However, when you get sat down, you're given their set menu. Now, at that point, if you're a sane person and you didn't want their set menu, you would just walk out and find somewhere else, right? Well, let me introduce you to this lovely woman who I will call Emma, who's maybe in her late 40s. She's just finished her meal with her partner and approaches the register to pay. She is incredibly upset and also half-cut, as she explains that they should have advertised their set menu better, that the service was garbage and so is the food. She gets incredibly shouty and aggressive, clearly embarrassing her partner who doesn't have the guts to step in and stop this tantrum. She demands they reduce the bill, and when the server does, due to her aggressive demeanor, she gets even more aggressive and demands more's taken off. Her partner at this point asks her weakly, please stop, but alas, she's officially on one. She eventually does pay, but the mistreatment continues. She's upset they didn't put the set menu on their website, which she also demanded the name of, so clearly she never even looked at one. She then said she was going to talk to trading standards, and she was also pointing and cussing like crazy, but eventually she leaves, which is the best decision she's made all evening. This woman was handed a set menu on arrival, likely a walk-in, and ate the entire meal. Her bill was maybe $85, which is the price advertised on the set menu plus some drinks, and yet she had the gall to cause such a fuss and embarrass herself. There are plenty of other restaurants in the area about which are guaranteed to have seats available as we are a small town. And by the way, the food was amazing and the service was amazing. I wanted to step in and support the servers, but my partner prevented me from stepping in as I was feeling a little aggressive and he didn't want me to make it worse. Therefore, I've been upset about this interaction all evening. I can't believe people are like that, and I'm sorry to any server who has ever had an interaction like this before, but please know we tipped more than 20% and we thanked them all for an amazing night before leaving, because this kind of crap from Emma is absolutely not acceptable. Dude, I am right there with the original poster. As someone who's worked in the serving industry, I will never understand some people, dude. If you have a set menu, meaning that this is what you're gonna get, and you still don't like it after you've eaten the entire meal, guess what? You still have to pay full price. And I'm actually kind of blown away that the manager didn't step in and say, oh no, you have to pay for that. I'm sorry, but there's absolutely no excuse. If you didn't like it, you should have said something at the beginning, or just straight up go to another restaurant, dude. What are you doing? So yeah, people like this are crazy. There's no reason to act like that, especially when it sounds like the place they went to was a lovely place to eat. Two entitled bakers decide to completely tank their business after they respond to some negative criticism online in a way that makes them look incredibly bad, because now I'm convinced that their business is going to shut down, and honestly, all of it is completely their fault. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, and just for a bit of context, without giving away my exact location, I live in a fairly large city outside the United States, and it's big enough to have several genuinely excellent bakeries. There's one particular bakery that most people had not even heard of until recently. They loudly proclaimed themselves to be the makers of one of the best cheesecakes in the world. They also love reminding everyone that they're a two-sister team who supposedly rejected hundreds of pastry chef applications from around the globe just to stay authentic to the brand, which is interesting considering I frequent a lot of good bakeries here and had never even encountered them before this mess. They operate on a reservation-only model. Now, converting the price into US dollars for context and adjusting for inflation, an equivalent to this would be paying like $250 up front, which you're then expected to spend on desserts at your table. And that's a huge amount of money in my country where you can get a really good slice of cheesecake for like $3 or less. In other words, they want you to drop roughly $250 on a single cheesecake. And no, this is not a life-changing experience. And recently, they launched an even pricier high tea experience. Well, eventually, as you can probably imagine, a customer commented on their post fairly politely that the cost didn't seem to match the quality and that it felt really overpriced. The bakery then responded by telling her she was too poor to afford it. They mocked her grammar, insulted her taste, and implied that she lacked class. In fact, this quickly became their go-to strategy for anyone who questioned them. Well, naturally, Reddit got involved. Comments flooded their post, and at this point, most businesses would call a PR firm and just issue an apology. But these sisters chose to do the exact opposite. They doubled down with a long, painfully pretentious post about how bold statements are necessary to maintain an iconic brand. They asked haters to keep commenting because it boosted engagement and continued insulting anyone who tried to be reasonable. Both sisters are in their late 20s or early 30s, and one of them even has a master's degree, which makes this entire meltdown even more impressive. In less than a day, they managed to torch their reputation through sheer social media arrogance. And over the past couple of days, customers have openly refused to buy from them after being told that you're too poor for the brand. Well, it turns out insulting your customer base is not a sustainable business model, because honestly, we're giving them maybe a month until they finally shut down. Dude, this is one of those situations where it would have been better just to be like, oh, you're so right, let's make this way more affordable, rather than expecting people to show up and spending $250 on pastries. Like, dude, what are we talking about? There's no way I'm spending that much. Like, you better be making pastries out of gold if I'm buying it for that amount, because holy crap, that is overpriced. And I just love the fact that these kind of people who are like, oh, we're remaining iconic. This is our way of standing up to the bullies and fighting back. But dude, if you really want to get back at these people, don't like destroy your business in the process. Why not just listen to your customers and make something more affordable? It's like they want to be this exclusive restaurant despite having a crap product and then fighting people on it and being like, oh yeah, you're wrong. You can't spell correctly. It's like, dude, that's not gonna last. So yeah, I can see these people getting shut down pretty quickly and having absolutely no way of making any money, because attacking your customer base is definitely the last thing you want to do. Am I the jerk for telling off my class president and refusing to cooperate, all because she enlisted me in a school event without my consent? Because right now my classmates are saying that I'm the jerk for not cooperating, as I could potentially get all of us in trouble for not being involved. But despite the fact that I was never asked explicitly to be a part of this, I'm honestly now feeling very frustrated, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things off, I'm an 18-year-old female and I'm currently in high school. Not too long ago, there was a school event that was organized to celebrate our trilingual institution, meaning that we held inter-class competitions in our local language, our national language, and in English. Every class is required to send 1 or 2 representatives per competition branch. Now, compared to my classmates, I am quite fluent in English, but I had another competition outside of my school that I needed to prepare for, so I did not enlist myself. About 2 weeks before the day of the event, the guidebook was sent to my class's group chat, as well as a list of who will be participating. Our class president, who's also an 18-year-old female, urged us to enlist ourselves, but since I was busy, I decided to ignore it. Fast forward a week after that, and at 7 p.m. on a Friday, my class president sent me a direct message. She asked me if I've already submitted the video for the upcoming school event's English speech contest. When I asked for further information, she sent me a screenshot of the list in the class group chat, showing that my name was on their list under English speech contest. Well, she admonished me for not paying attention, since she tagged me and the other contestants literally 5 days beforehand. In fact, she said to me, "You didn't know that you were enlisted as a participant? Oh, come on. We've already listed you in the group chat since like a week ago." When I checked the actual list, I found that above it, she had conveniently cropped out a text where she had said that this was a revised list composed by herself and our class's vice president, and apparently we can't protest this as they've officially registered the people on the list. She literally said there's no excuses. Well, I screenshotted that specific text and I circled the no excuses part before sending it to her. I told her that in that entire week after she registered me me and our other classmates, neither she nor her vice president ever bothered to check in with me about whether or not I'm going to be able to participate. I also emphasized the fact that only now, less than 5 hours before the deadline, did any of them bother to text me. At the end of my text, I told her that everything must be done with consent and that there was no such thing as no excuses, considering that we live in a democratic country. Well, the class president left me on red, so you know what? I said to myself, fine, whatever. A couple of days later, it's Monday again, and the class president and vice president did not bring up this issue. My parents say that I'm right for feeling slighted, while some of my classmates have said that I'm the jerk for refusing to cooperate and potentially getting the entire class in trouble. So seriously, am I the jerk? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. I would not buy into this for a second. Because honestly, you have it right. No one's gonna be like, there's no excuses. We already registered. You can't say no. But it's like, no, I'm not gonna agree to this. You literally didn't even ask me, and you just signed me up because I'm the only person that can speak English, apparently. And to any classmate who's trying to be like, wow, you're gonna get all of us in trouble. Just cooperate. It's like, no, stupid. The only person that's getting in trouble is the class president and the vice president. You're not the jerk for not wanting to do something that you didn't sign up for. That's an insane precedent to set, and honestly, I can't stand anybody trying to force you into this. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would absolutely go to a higher up or some kind of principal figure and show them everything that's happened against you, because these people literally have tried to sign you up for something against your will, almost as if they're gonna make you do it in some kind of way. And it's like, yeah, okay, buddy, you're gonna make me do anything, because the way they handle this is incredibly idiotic and you don't deserve to deal with this in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for yelling at a mom and her kid to get out of my house after they literally make a mess of everything? Because right now I'm being slandered on Facebook and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female, and a few months ago I started a new Dungeons & Dragons campaign and invited a few friends. One of them, who we will call Sarah, asked if her friend, who we will call Anne, could join us. For reference, Anne is a mom who doesn't get many chances to hang out with adults, so I agreed, even though I knew she might be flaky due to childcare responsibilities. I then asked Anne if she could at least attend the first few sessions to get familiar with the game, and she agreed. She then proceeded to cancel, mostly last minute, every single proposed first session for the next 2 months. I told her I'm sorry, but if she can't make it to the next proposed session, she won't be in the long campaigns, but still is welcome to join any one-shots. She then apologized and said that she will make it. Well, to her credit, she did make it, but she brought her toddler with her without asking me first. As soon as they came, the kid needed to use the bathroom, and he made a mess since he can't fully use an adult toilet yet. I told Anne that's fine, but asked her to please clean it up. And when I said this surprised her, and she started being a bit on edge. We finally sat down at the table, and the kid started running around, looking for things to do. I was a bit stressed out by this, and Anne noticed and put him in her lap. But now the kid was at the table, which was covered in mini figurines, dice, pretty pictures, and maps, most of which being a choking hazard, along with glasses of various drinks. The kids started fussing about wanting to play with them, and I was telling Anne no because it's not safe, but she told me he's gentle and doesn't put stuff in his mouth. And quite literally, we were bickering while her kid was throwing a tantrum. After the kid knocked over a glass, I loudly asked her to step out into the backyard and calm him down for a bit while I make the table safer. Well, she did, even though she was visibly embarrassed, and I removed everything except for plain-looking papers, some pens, and paper cups. I also did my best to calm down, as this entire thing stressed me out beyond end. They came back and things were fine for a minute. That is, until my dog came out of my bedroom to drink water. Now, I don't have many house rules, but I have one that's really important. Please ignore the dog. And they were informed of that before coming over. Well, the kid spotted her and yelled, "Doggy!" And Anne put her kid down to say hi to the dog, where he then made a full-speed beeline at my dog while making grabbing motions and yelling. I stopped him by stepping out in front of him. He ran into me, fell down, and started crying. It was here that Anne started screaming at me, but you know what? I screamed back and very swiftly told her to get the F out of my house. Sarah was annoyed and told us that it took them an hour and a half to get to me, and then went with Anne since they carpooled together. The rest of the group stayed, and it was awkward for half an hour or so, but we ended up having fun, and they even stayed for the night. I then woke up to the local Facebook groups and people's Instagram stories calling me a controlling jerk, saying I'm discriminating against various players, being too strict, and I have a dangerous dog. To add insult to injury, Sarah, who I've been friends with for years, is now not speaking to me. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. First and foremost, I think Anne in this story is a complete moron, and the fact that she doesn't realize how bad she's acting is just so uncalled for. I mean, she brought her kid over without asking first, and just said, "Oh yeah, this'll be fine, don't worry about it. He's gonna play with us, he's really gentle." And then then literally in that same sentence, that kid pushes over a glass and ruins everything on the board. Like, I don't think so. That's not gonna happen. That's not okay. But for Anne to let the kid down and start running at the dog, you know, the same dog they were told to ignore, who very well could have gone ballistic with this kind of overstimulation. Like, seriously, what's going on right now? How crappy of a parent do you need to be to allow your kid to go near a dog that, guess what, you don't know anything about? You don't know if that's a nice dog or a mean dog. You don't know if that dog's super aggressive or it's like a rescue or something like that, so it might have like a negative reaction to children. Like, seriously, what were you thinking? Why would you do that? Because I know if I was in the original poster's shoes, I absolutely would have blocked that annoying demon spawn from getting near my dog. And the fact that Anne tried to blame that on you and be like, your dog's dangerous. It's like, no, Anne, you're a terrible parent and your kid has no self-control. So truly, I'm glad you kicked them out of your house, because honestly, that is the best course of action in my opinion. Because if her flaking out several times before wasn't a good indication that she sucks as a person, then her bringing her kid along and blaming you for all the problems she started is a really good indication that she's going to be a problem player pretty much no matter what. My boyfriend's dad is constantly making degrading insults towards me while defending the fact that he says they're jokes and that they don't actually mean anything. But after enduring this for so long, I'm honestly at a breaking point and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been with my boyfriend for 1.5 years and I've genuinely tried with his dad, but I feel like I'm at my limit. Reason being is that his dad constantly makes comments that are degrading and make me feel deeply uncomfortable. He will constantly refer to me by horrible names and things that are just unbelievably inappropriate. He makes remarks about my eating, saying things like, you don't stop eating, you just keep sucking food up. My God, don't tell me you're eating again. I mean, what don't you eat? And the list goes on and on. I already struggle with body image, and my boyfriend and his parents are aware of this, so having someone make these comments feels humiliating, especially when I'm at a very healthy weight. I'm toned and I work out 5 times a week. It's not even about my body. It's the constant need to comment on what I'm eating. He will sometimes cook Sunday dinner and do me one too, and then berate me for eating it quickly. He also constantly comments on my appearance. He's told me I shouldn't wear makeup around the house and that I should wear light clothing instead of black. Before we went on holiday together, his parents sat me down and told me I should stop wearing so much makeup. And for reference, I've worn gothic smoky eye makeup for like 10 years because you know what? I like it. They also said I shouldn't wear makeup during the day on holidays because according to them, it will melt off. But I was also told I could wear it on the evenings. And my boyfriend defended this by saying they just want me to feel more confident. When we were on holiday together, his dad was especially nasty to me, and I felt completely trapped in a foreign country. I couldn't even have alcohol without being called an alcoholic. I felt trapped and it put a strain on my relationship. He also frequently looks me up and down inappropriately, in front of my boyfriend too, mind you, which makes me feel incredibly uncomfortable. In fact, even their own pets are afraid of him. The part that's really hard to navigate is that my boyfriend is always chasing his dad's approval. His dad was so cruel and cold to him growing up that they only formed a relationship after COVID, despite always living together. His dad always favored his only sister, which is ironic given how he talks about women. And yet my boyfriend insists that his dad loves me and is protective of me, saying that he would go to war for me. But that literally doesn't match anything I experience from him. My boyfriend has confronted his dad before, telling him to stop with the name calling, and his dad hugged me and apologized, saying it was just a joke and that he would be more careful. But since then, it feels like he's been on a mission to push my boundaries even further, almost to prove that I can't tell him what to do. And my boyfriend told me I shouldn't expect his dad to change and that his dad shouldn't have to walk on eggshells. I love my boyfriend and I love the time we spend together, but I'm at the point where I want to completely avoid his dad because he makes me feel so uncomfortable. My body literally goes into fight or flight when I see him. So how do I set boundaries when my boyfriend doesn't seem to think I should? What should I do? Okay, this is messed up across the board in my opinion, because the fact that your boyfriend doesn't see this as a problem, in my opinion, is a massive red flag. That is not something I would take lightly because he really should be on your side. You saying, oh my gosh, I feel uncomfortable by this, should be more than enough for him to step in and be like, wait a second, this can't happen anymore. Because that guy's dad sounds like a toxic piece of work. It doesn't sound like he cares about you at all, and he just wants to berate you and make fun of you and treat you like garbage. And most likely it's from his own amusement or something like that. So no, this is not okay, this is not normal, and I don't blame you for being upset. Because if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. An entitled Karen skips in front of me in a long line for food after I'd been waiting there for about 10 minutes. But after she tried to justify her reasoning, as well as trying to put me down at the age of 8 years old, my mom steps in and pops off on this lady in a way that she truly was not expecting, making this one of the most satisfying moments of my life so far. Here's what happened. So this happened when I was around 8 years old, when I encountered my first ever entitled Karen. For context, me and my mother were visiting her old high school for a reunion of hers, and the building had a vending machine of microwavable foods, including cheeseburgers, burgers, hot dogs, and popcorn. I chose the cheeseburger and the line was huge. I mean, there were like so many people in line. So I went back and I sat with my mom to wait. I returned back to the line after noticing that it got shorter, but as I was about to put my food in the microwave, this lady who looked to be in about her 40s immediately skipped in front of me. So I said to her, excuse me ma'am, I was standing in front of you. Looking at me with a sickeningly sweet expression, this entitled Karen said to me, I'm sorry sweetie, but I stepped out of line to talk to a friend, so I was actually in front of you. I then looked at her and I said, but you were never in line. At this point, she was sneering at me with a condescending look in her eye. She said to me, please don't talk back to me, sweetheart. Either go find your mother or suck it up and stand at the back of the line. I'm not gonna argue with a child. I was upset, and being that I was only 8 years old, I pouted just a little bit. But instead of going to the back of the line, I went and told my mom what happened. And to say that she showed anger fast was an understatement. She immediately went on Mama Bear mode and took my hand and we stomped back up to the line. Well, this entitled Karen noticed my mother and said, what do you want? My mom then says to her, did you just skip my kid? She was waiting in this line for about 10 minutes before you showed up. The Karen lets out a snort and says, so what if I did? She's a big girl, she'll get over it. My mom is obviously getting angry at this point, and she says to her, she is 8 years old, are you kidding me? You can't be the bigger person and go to the back of the line. You were obviously not in line, so grow up and get in the back. The entitled Karen rolls her eyes and says, whatever. She then looks at me and says, I'm sorry, kid. But my mom was not having any of that. She said to this Karen, don't talk to my child now, when you could have avoided this whole ordeal by just going to the back of the line. At this point, the Karen was screaming at my mom, claiming that I was lying and that she was a terrible mother. She accused her of raising a spoiled brat and yelled at me, calling me a few choice words. I then started crying because I was a pretty sensitive kid. One of the high school security guards noticed the noise and broke up the fight. The Karen immediately started acting innocent and accused me of skipping her, which obviously wasn't true. The security guard luckily was watching the entire interaction and told the Karen to either get in the back of the line and wait, or she could leave the premises. Well, she didn't like that and started to throw a temper tantrum, screaming about how she was going to sue my mom, the guard, and me. But after another threat from the guard, she sucked it up and stormed to the back of the line. I got to microwave my stuff and I walked back to my mother, and I honestly couldn't resist a bit of childish pettiness and revenge. So I smirked smugly at the Karen, who was now fuming at this point, while also sticking my tongue out at her. She was about to scream, but instead she just muttered the word brat under her breath. So I guess the moral of the story is that you shouldn't try to skip the line, because regardless, it's a really crappy thing to do. Yeah, this Karen was seriously out of line. You mean to tell me after not getting her way, she not only throws a temper tantrum, but then she's like, oh, I'm gonna sue everybody, especially you, and then points at like the 8-year-old version of you. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? I'm just trying to get like this food or whatever. You're the one that's skipping in front of an 8-year-old and trying to justify it. Like, who's the real bad guy here? I don't think it's me. I'm pretty sure it's you. So yeah, I love this story so much, and honestly, it is so nice to see a Karen get shut down in her place. An entitled idiotic customer literally ignores all the warnings I give him when it comes to returning a product at our store, because after he came in the next day trying to return a product that we could only give partial credit back for, he's now pissed off, claiming that he never knew any of the things that I literally explained to him 24 hours prior. And now I'm honestly super frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Many years ago, the shop I worked in had a strict policy. They had a restocking fee on all returns unless the product was actually faulty. Usually people understood when we explained we can't sell an open product as new, so if it simply wasn't to their liking, we would offer a partial refund. Well, not everybody understood this, especially for the guy I'm about to describe. On the first visit, the customer asked about a product. We discuss it in detail and I answer every question that he has. The customer then says to me, if it doesn't work, can I return it? I explain to him by saying, well, if it's faulty, certainly. If it's not faulty, there is a restocking fee, and you would need your receipt, and it's up to 12 months and all the other details that might need to be known. So the customer buys whatever it is. Well, fast forward, and on the second visit, the customer wants to return the product. I say to him, okay, can I ask why you need to return it? The customer then says, well, it doesn't do what I want it to. I then ask further and I say, okay, well, how so? The customer says, well, I needed to do all this other stuff and it just doesn't do that, as he then went into detail about all the things he needs this thing to do. I say to him, okay, no problem. We can refund you, but as it's not faulty, it will be a partial refund. He then asked the magic question, well, why is it a partial refund? So I have to explain once again, well, it's because it's not faulty. We can't resell this product with an open box and a broken seal as a new item. As there's nothing wrong with it, we can allow you to return it, but not for full price. The customer then starts shouting, well, that's not fair. Why should I have to pay for something that I don't want? But I say to him, well, you're returning it open and used. It's now a secondhand item. We won't be able to charge full price on it for the next customer. If you decided you don't want this anymore, as a courtesy, we will accept it back, minus any cost that we will incur. The customer then said to me, well, I don't agree to that. But I explained to him, sir, I was the one who sold this to you yesterday. I remember our conversation, including when I explained the restocking fee on non-faulty items. So yes, you did indeed agree to this. The customer then said, oh, I never said that. But I had to further explain by saying, well, I'm not saying you spoke the words I agree to the terms of the sale out loud, but I am saying that I explained to you the terms of the sale and then you purchased the item. And those two things happen in that order. With that knowledge, you could have decided not to purchase the item, but you did it anyways. So it was an agreement to the terms of the sale. The customer then just came back and said, well, no, it wasn't. But I said to him, you said it isn't faulty. We said we would offer a partial refund if it was returned non-faulty. And here we are offering you a partial refund exactly as we discussed before you went ahead with a sale. The customer then tried to double back as if I wasn't paying attention and said, well, it is faulty. When I asked him how so, he said to me, well, it doesn't do all the things that I want. So I responded back by saying, well, yeah, correct, it doesn't. It wasn't designed to do all those extra things. You asked a number of questions about it yesterday, and I answered all of them at length, and the things that you're wanting were never mentioned. So it's not faulty if it does everything it was designed to do. The customer then said that they can't make use of it, but I explained that as a courtesy, we offer a partial refund. He then said, well, that's not good enough. And at this point, all I could say was, okay. The customer then asked me what I meant by okay, and I just responded by saying, I personally answered every question you asked about this item, including the one you had about refunds. You were fully aware of the terms of the sale, and you made the choice to buy it. It is now your item. It literally belongs to you. We are offering a partial refund on a non-faulty item, and you have said that offer is not good enough. There's no obligation on your part to accept our offer. This is definitely your choice as well. The customer then looked at me and said, well, what do you expect me to do? And now I was gobsmacked. I seriously did not know what to say. So I just looked at him and I said, well, I'm not sure what you mean. I don't have any expectations of you. You can choose to accept our offer of a partial refund or not. That is for you to decide. Well, we never saw that one ever again, and honestly, it left me feeling very confused and very annoyed. Man, this customer did not know what they wanted. I mean, for me, the second I find out there's a partial refund at a place I'm buying something, that's when I decide, you know what, I'm just gonna go somewhere else, or I'm gonna shop online or something like that. Having a partial refund, in my opinion, is a stupid policy, and that is absolutely ridiculous, and I personally think that anybody should have a right to return something if they didn't use it, and if it's within a certain period of time that they can actually return it, like 30 days or 90 days or whatever might be going on. So that for me is a big red flag already, but this guy went ahead with it and is now trying to be like, well, I didn't agree to a partial refund. And it's like, yeah, dude, absolutely you did agree to this. All of this was explained to you and you still bought it. This is your own problem and not mine. And if you've ever worked customer service, then you know this feeling where you're like, dude, I literally explained all of this to you and you just ignored it and said, well, I didn't agree to that. It's like customers like this become so stupid all of a sudden, and it's like weaponizing competence or something like that. It is so annoying and I cannot stand it, especially when you're the person that helped this customer out and you know for a fact you went over every single detail with that guy. You went over what kind of product they're getting, all the things it does do and doesn't do, and all the stipulations associated with returns and having a receipt, while also having what looks like up to a 12-month period of hey, you can return it in this window. That's already a super generous offer. So for him, literally 24 hours later, to turn around and try to return it, all under the guise of oh, it doesn't do all the things I want it to do. It's dude, you're so dumb. Seriously, get a grip. But overall, I think you handled this really well because you did not allow this guy to bully you into getting his way. Because I guarantee you, someone like that absolutely would have pushed you around to get what they want. And that, in my opinion, is super unfair. My psycho grandfather tried to manipulate me, bribe me, and then force me into getting plastic surgery for my ear, as he was literally so obsessed with my ears and how they were completely misshaped that he went to crazy lengths just to force me into getting plastic surgery. He even went as far as to try and trick me into having surgery the same day just so I would get it done and be perfect in his eyes. And I'm honestly still blown away by the way he treated me. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 22-year-old male, and this is about my controlling grandfather who literally spent years trying to force me into plastic surgery. This is going to be a long one, so please buckle up. Now, for a bit of context, I was born with two slightly different shaped ears. One of them curls in a little, but it's not super noticeable unless you're staring at me from up close. It doesn't affect my life in any way, except that earbuds fall out more easily. Kids did tease me a little bit, but whatever. It was just how I looked. My grandfather, however, did not see it that way. To him, I wasn't perfect, and that was unacceptable. Looking back, I realized he was making comments about my ears since I was in preschool, but things really escalated when I turned 14 years old, which, for a bit of context, is the age that you can legally get plastic surgery in my former country. Practically every day, he would remind me of my hideous and atrocious ear. At the time I lived with my mom, and he lived in the apartment below us. This meant that he had easy access to my life and never missed an opportunity to put me down. One day, after months of brainwashing, he took me to a fancy restaurant, just the two of us. Keep in mind, my mom and I were lower middle class, while he was more on the upper class side. I thought it was just a nice lunch, but when dessert arrived, he casually asked me, "So do you want to finally get plastic surgery and look normal?" And just like always, I told him no. I liked how I looked. I was unique. Now, what was his response, you might be wondering? He just silently stood up, paid the bill, yanked me by the arm, and dragged me to his car. He shoved me out in front of our apartment and drove off without another word. Now, he was supposed to watch me that evening since my mom had to work late, but instead he ignored me completely. I had no keys, so I sat outside for 6 hours until my mom came home. A few weeks later, he started talking to me again, acting like nothing had happened. One day, he even picked me up early from school and took me out to a restaurant. Strangely, for the first time in years, he didn't mention my ear. Not once. But instead, we just had fun. And over the next few weeks, he kept this up. We would go to movies, museums, my favorite restaurants. No insults, no guilt tripping. It honestly felt nice. But under the surface, there was a scheme going that honestly I didn't see coming. Because what my grandfather did next honestly blew my mind. Fast forward, and one day during a car ride home, he asked me, "What do you want the most and I'll buy it for you?" Well, asking an open-ended question like that to a 14-year-old left me ecstatic. So I asked him for a gaming PC. Well, without any hesitation, he drove me straight to the store and told me to pick out whatever I wanted, even setting a budget of $2,000. To me, that was an insane amount of money. I then just picked out my dream setup, practically shaking with excitement. Then, at the register, he turned to me and said, "All right, pay up." I blinked at him and I said, "Wait, what?" He then said to me, "Oh, you don't have the money? Well, I'll give it to you on one condition. You will fix your ear." His voice at this moment was deep and demanding, loud but not yelling, but still firm. I then started crying and I ran out of the store. And I literally ran the 5 kilometers back home. When I told my mom, she was livid. She stormed downstairs, pounded on his door until he opened up, and they argued for a long time. When she came back, she was in tears, but she told me I had done the right thing. The next day, my grandfather acted completely normal again. He picked me up from school, he was super friendly, and he told me that he had a surprise for me. On one hand, I knew he was up to something. On the other hand, he had taught me from a young age to use people for what they could offer. So I got in the car hoping for another fun day, but instead he drove me to a private health clinic. Once inside, he introduced me to his friend, a plastic surgeon. They talked for a while before the surgeon took my measurements, and then, just before signing the documents, the surgeon turned to me and asked, "Which one of you wants this surgery today?" At this point, I was frozen. My grandfather then immediately answered, "He does, he's just nervous." I then pointed at him and I held back my tears, and at this point, the doctor frowned. Well, I can't perform surgery if the patient doesn't want it. My grandfather then lied and said that he was my legal guardian, stating that it's because my parents were dead. He tried to fake documents to authorize the surgery, but thankfully the doctor refused. Now at that point, I completely broke down, terrified that something had happened to my mom. My grandfather sighed, drove me home without saying a word again, and handed me off to my mom, who had no idea where I'd been. And that moment was the breaking point for everything. We went low contact with him for a few years, or possibly he was punishing us by ignoring us as he tended to do that. Well, eventually, even I needed braces, and he offered to pay for them. We were tight on money, so my mom reluctantly agreed. He promised to cover half the cost, but in reality, he paid for half of my top braces and a quarter of the bottom ones. And not to mention, how he didn't think it was necessary to pay $20 every 2 weeks for a couple of years for tightening. He still, every couple of months or so, tried to bribe me to get the surgery, or to accept money as a loan that I didn't need to try and pay him back, or any other way that he could think of to get control over me. Even now, years later, he still is trying to control me. I mean, I moved to a different country after college just to get away from him. I have no job yet, my savings are drained, and almost like he sensed it, he reached out last week. He said to me, "Do you want $10,000? All you have to do is get this quick, simple surgery and the money is yours." But you know what? I didn't even reply. After the incident at the clinic, my grandfather went on a smear campaign, telling our extended family that my mom, his own daughter, had somehow turned me against my loving and caring grandfather. And you know what? Most of them believed him. My mom and I were banned from family gatherings, holidays, and celebrations, and he even told us that we had no right to use our own last name anymore, with the only person who stayed on our side being my grandmother. I know this was a lot, and I'm so sorry for dumping it all on you guys, but I needed to tell somebody. The last 2 therapists I saw sided with him, so I feel like I have no one unbiased to talk to. And just to be clear, I will never get this surgery, and I will never take his money ever in my life. Wow, your grandfather's a piece of garbage. Seriously, this guy's trying to be like, "Oh, you need to fix your ear. Here's all the money in the world. Get it done because I want it done." First of of all, it's not that big of a deal, and secondly, this is not his body. He does not have a say over what you can and cannot do with it. So if you don't want to get that surgery, then congratulations, don't get it. I mean, this guy even went as far as taking you to a clinic and saying, okay, we're here to get surgery done. It's like, no, dude, you can't do that to somebody. So in my opinion, I think it's probably a good thing that you don't have to deal with your grandfather anymore, or at least you know exactly the kind of person he is. Because I know if I was in your shoes, I would cut him off completely. I would not only never talk to him again, but I would also fix my reputation amongst the family. I would tell them exactly what he did to me. I would spare no details, and I would literally be like, look, this is exactly what happened. Because what he did to you, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. And there's honestly no good excuse for any of that. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I messed up by making my girlfriend think that I was cheating on her. But in reality, I was planning a surprise engagement with her and her family, despite the fact that she thought I was cheating on her with her best friend. Here's what happened. Alright, so this actually happened over the weekend, and I'm still a bit shaken and relieved writing this. So my girlfriend and I have been together for 3 years, and I wanted to do something really special for her birthday coming up. I decided I would plan a surprise party and propose to her at the party in front of our friends and family. And yes, I know, this definitely is very ambitious. The past few weeks, I've been sneaking around organizing everything. I bought a ring, conspired with her best friend, and even had secret calls with her parents to get their blessing. I was so excited, and I was sure it would be an epic surprise. Well, the mess up began with all the secretive behavior this required. I am usually an open book, but suddenly I'm hiding my phone, texting people behind her back, and making up lame excuses to duck out of the house. I thought I was being slick to avoid spoiling the surprise, but in reality, I was acting really sketchy. Her best friend who's helping me plan messaged me something like, hey, I can't wait to see you to go over the final details. And this is while my girlfriend was borrowing my phone to play a song. I snatched the phone back so fast and pretended that it was a work message. But this was a mistake. At that point, I officially raised every suspicious red flag possible, and I could feel her side-eyeing me for the rest of the night. Over the next few days, I noticed my girlfriend getting quiet and anxious. I tried to play it cool, but I was often rushing off to take calls from the party venue or whispering to her friends about party preparation. She then started asking me strange questions. Stuff like, everything okay between us? And I just nervously laughed it off, which only made me look guiltier. I was this close to the finish line, so I figured it would be fine once I pulled off the surprise. You know, if I could avoid looking like a cheating jerk for 2 more days. Well, last Friday, it all came crashing down. I came home and found my girlfriend in tears holding an iPad. Now, here's a pro tip for you. If you have Apple devices, they all get your iMessages. And basically, she had seen some of my message exchanges with her best friend about the plan and keeping it a secret. Now, one out of context line from me said, hey, I can't wait to finally do this. It's so hard to keep lying to my girlfriend. Now, for clarity, I meant lying to her about why I was busy, but my God, out of context, it looks so bad. She then confronted me sobbing, thinking I was having an affair with her best friend or something like that. She was shaking and my heart absolutely dropped into my stomach. I then started panicking, trying to explain it's not what you think. It took me a solid minute to get her to stop yelling and just listen. I was literally on my knees. Not exactly how I planned this, trying to calm her down and tell her the truth. I said to her, I swear I was lying because I'm trying to plan a surprise for you. Please just open that closet. She was still confused and sniffling and crying, and she opened the closet where I hid the birthday gift bag and the ring box inside. She turned back to me and I just blurted out everything. The party, the proposal, how her friend and parents were in on it, and that I'm an idiot. She then went from angry crying to shocked crying, and finally started to happy cry once it all clicked in place. I ended up officially proposing to her right then and there on our living room floor, because why not at that point? Not the most grand romantic gesture I envisioned, but the ring made it on her finger. She said yes through a lot of tears and a half laugh at how absurd the whole situation was, and we just sat on the floor hugging each other, both of us just kind of trembling. Her from the emotional roller coaster I put her on, and me from narrowly avoiding complete disaster. Later on, when things calmed down, she did kind of scold me by saying, you dummy, I really thought you were cheating, you scared me. Which is fair. I feel like a total jerk for putting her through that. We also had a laugh when she realized that her best friend's winky face emojis in our text messages were about the cake and decorations and not about secret hookups. In the end, we decided to still go through the birthday party that night and act like the proposal was a surprise in front of our friends. It was awkwardly hilarious because everyone but her thought that she was genuinely surprised when I got down on one knee. I mean, they had no idea she'd found out beforehand. And you know what? We haven't told that part of the story to our families yet. And for now, that little fiasco is just gonna be between me and the internet. Wow, talk about turning a possibly disastrous situation into a really good one. I completely completely understand where the girlfriend's coming from too, by the way. This looks really sketchy from her perspective. She sees you sneaking around, talking to her best friend via text messaging, and just all around acting shady and really secretive. And that, in my opinion, would set anybody's alarm bells off in their head. So good for you for fixing this possible disaster, because this really could have fallen apart in the worst way possible. My younger brother's girlfriend said something that made me incredibly uncomfortable. But now, even months later, this is still a problem in my family's lives, as they constantly bring this up and criticize her for what she said. And as a result, I feel like I'm at a breaking point, because I literally just want things to go back to the way they were. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, for a bit of background, my brother, who we will call John, is very different from me. And honestly, it's always been that way. I'm a nerdy guy who likes to play Dungeons and Dragons, and someone who works from home coding websites. He's always been sporty and has one of those corporate office jobs where I swear half of his work is just playing golf and going to fancy lunches. We didn't always get along, but these days we are on pretty good terms. He started dating his girlfriend, who we will call Jane, a few years back during what was a pretty low point for me in my life. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship that had ended anything but amicably, was burning out of the career I went to college for, and in general was about 2 paychecks away from having to move in with my folks. The stress of it all was taking a toll on my body. I went from the lightly chubby that I'd been my entire life to just straight up fat. And shortly after the breakup, I had an anxiety attack so bad, it put me in the hospital. So basically, it was not a good time to get to know me. I was basically the picture of your messed up older brother. But you know what? I turned it around. I got the mental health assistance that I needed to diagnose and treat some long-standing issues. With that as a springboard, I started exercising more and eating better, finding cooking to be a good hobby that also led to me eating less takeout and processed food. I'm still no Adonis and I've still got a bit of a tummy, but I'm much stronger and I feel better. I was able to quit my job and find a new one in a field that I never considered, but that I found I loved enough that I'm going back to school to work on my PhD in the fall so that I can pursue it in a greater extent. And finally, I started dating again. Someone who, for the sake of the story, I'll call Flo, turned out to be a much better match for me than my ex. Which all brings us to the night where things went wrong. We have a family gathering at my parents' house, extended family and all, plus we had Jane and Flo over. And for this event, I'm making dinner, which is beef Wellington. Everyone is raving about my food. And for reference, I also did dinner this past Thanksgiving as well. They're also talking about my recent glow up, my new job, the program I got into, etc. I'm smiling politely and mostly just trying to do a bunch of dinner prep while they just won't get out of my way. Then Jane says to me, "Yeah, never thought I picked the wrong brother, but I'm starting to think that I might have." When she said that, you could literally hear a pin drop. I said nothing again and just awkwardly laughed at what I assumed to have been a bad joke. Jane's face then immediately changed to the look of someone who had just realized their mess up. John looked pissed off, and the two of them left the kitchen shortly afterwards. From what I could see, she seemed to be trying to apologize to him, while he looked really hurt. My relatives said nothing. Not immediately anyways. Flo just kind of winced, and later told me that it was really awkward having to stand there, but she didn't know what else to do that would have escalated things or put me on the spot. Well, that was over 2 months ago, and both John and Jane avoid me like the plague. Not even a text message ever since then. Whenever I meet up with my relatives, they badmouth her over it. And while I think Jane did mess up saying that, I really do think she was just trying to make a bad joke. Personally, I think they're overreacting. This aside, I think she's probably the first person he's ever dated who was a fit for him in terms of personality and lifestyle. The only person being normal about it is Flo, who thinks it was weird, but like me, just a dumb thing to say. She's not even jealous about the situation. She knows Jane isn't my type. So seriously, how do I clear the air with Jane and John and finally get people to stop bringing this up? I'm sick of hearing about it and I just want things to go back to how they were before. Right now, it just feels like a dark cloud over all our interactions. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, this is really annoying because I think you're exactly right. I think maybe she just made a bad joke and it flopped really bad. And now everybody's making a bigger deal out of this than there needs to be. Like that, in my opinion, is way worse than what she said because it really seems like they're just using that as an excuse to treat her like crap. And that is really not fair. Like seriously, that's not fair. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would be taking the chance to look at these people and say, hey, you really need to stop talking like this because it's not good. I would even go to different family members in private and be like, listen, can we please stop this? This is weird and I don't like it and I don't agree with what you're doing. And then maybe that can like help mitigate things a little bit because I think at the end of the day, Jane just literally put her foot in her mouth. And now people are pretty much just throwing this way out of proportion. My dad keeps self-inviting himself on my trips across Europe and other places, where he literally shows up unannounced and basically interrupts all my plans right then and there. And I'm at a point where it keeps happening and it's honestly so annoying. annoying, and at this point, I don't know what to do. To start things off, I'm 30 years old with no siblings and a good relationship with my parents. I live a 2-hour flight away from my parents, and it's important to know that I love traveling. But ever since my early 20s, I'm always very uncomfortable telling my parents where I'm going next. I did a couple of trips with a friend in my early 20s, and my dad showed up in a surprising way. One time, it was in a European country, and the other one was in Thailand for a few days. And he continued the vacation by himself, and we went for dinner. My dad loves traveling, and my mom doesn't want to leave the country, so I guess from his perspective, when I go places, he has an opportunity to travel without being alone. I can't understand that, but I'm also very independent. And I'm 30, not over 60. The problem is that he always operates in the same way. I know every time I say I'm going somewhere, he is going to start checking how much a flight is for him. He won't ask if he can join, and instead he would appear as a surprise, self-inviting himself thinking that this is cool. For example, one time I said I was going with my boyfriend at the time to Paris, and he messaged me a few days later that he had everything planned to show up and wanted to know locations of my hotel. Now mind you, this was Paris in my 20s with my first official boyfriend, and he did not have the filter to understand that he was not invited, and at least that time I was able to avoid it since he needed some information. Recently, I went on a long weekend to Iceland by myself, and he made a comment that I should have told him about it earlier so that he could join me. The way I've been dealing with this is for a quick weekend trip in Europe sometimes, where I just don't tell anybody anything. For the rest, I tell them 1 or 2 days in advance only, so there's not that much time for him to plan out or think about it. I am so tired that every single time I get excited and have a trip planned, I spend weeks overthinking this, considering how and when I'm gonna have to avoid this happening. I am going to China for a week, and I haven't told him about this yet, but I keep getting weird dreams about this topic. He likes Asia and has been there a few times, so I see it as high risk, and I'm stressing out about it. I love him, but I really just don't like traveling with him. We have different ways and opinions, and at this point, I'm seriously not sure what to do. Yeah, I can understand why this would be really weird, because that just doesn't sound like a fun time. Seriously, he's interrupting your plans. He's literally getting involved in ways that you don't want him to get involved. And to that end, I don't blame you for being upset. But I do think that this is one of those situations where, like, yeah, you probably need to talk to him straight up and just straight up say that you don't want him showing up to any of your vacation plans. I would just tell him straight up that it's making you uncomfortable and you don't want to deal with that, because what you're describing sounds really annoying, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. Am I the jerk for removing my cousin from my PC after they literally logged me out of a program that I needed to stay into, resulting in my cousin crying to his mother and me being painted as the bad guy? Here's what happened. Okay, so my uncle and his kids used to come over every single weekend, and they told their children it was okay to do whatever they wanted in my room, including taking my things. And one night, my cousin parked himself in front of my PC, all without asking if he could use it first. I see that he logs me out of a program, so I tell him to wait so I can log in again. He just responds that no, he didn't need to wait. Then, for a full 15 minutes, I tell him to pause the YouTube video that he was watching, and I try to pause the video myself, but he just shoved my hands away from the mouse. Every time I told him to wait, he would also just yell at me. Eventually, I said, "Get your act together or leave," and that didn't even receive a response. So at that point, I just turned off the PC. Immediately, he turned on the crocodile tears and ran to his mom. I explained I only wanted him to pause so I could log into a program that he logged me out of. She responded and said, "So you just had to do that while he was sitting there?" I responded back by saying it's actually my stuff he's sitting at. She then said to me, "Okay, nice. Well, we will remember that." For reference, before that, I wasn't even allowed to touch a Rubik's Cube when I was at their place. In fact, I got told by my cousin that I'm not allowed to touch their stuff. So I angrily went to my room and I shut the door. I then overheard my grandma, who was living there with us at the time, saying that she can't say that I've been mean to the kids. My cousin's mom then says, "Well, I've been patient with him for a long time." And also, apparently my cousin has been telling his mom that I've been mean and said mean things, which I never did. They eventually discovered that he had been lying about me for a long time, but of course, I never got an apology. She then says to my grandma as she was at the door ready to leave, she said, "I think this is the case. I believe he isn't confident with people his own age, so he has to compensate for that by attacking the kids." So am I the jerk in this situation for making my cousin cry, even though he was messing with my stuff? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, no, you are definitely not the jerk, and it's incredibly strange to me that your uncle and his wife would be like, "Oh yeah, use whatever you want. You can do anything in that room. Don't even worry about it." Even going as far as being like, "Oh yeah, you can steal from your cousin." Like at that point, I would lock down the entire room and change the password on the PC and everything. I would make it so they could never get into that ever again, because why should you let them? Like seriously, Seriously, these people have completely violated your privacy and have taken it upon themselves to treat you like garbage. And that, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. My entitled regional and district manager at McDonald's say that they will fire me if I don't leave my break time early and help out with a rush. But I decided to maliciously comply and get some petty revenge, as I instead threw these rules right back at their face in a way that would make them lose thousands of dollars, all because of some stupid rules that they made. Here's what happened. So this happened a few years ago when I worked at McDonald's. The one I worked in was near a bunch of schools, so most of the staff was high school kids. As summer vacation started, we began having the trouble of an employee getting a break and then spending their break eating their meal and conversating with their friends who were still working in the kitchen. It was having a seriously bad effect on productivity, as well as posing quite a few health risks. So our manager finally initiated a rule that if you were on your break, you couldn't leave the break room until your break was over. And this went swimmingly until the kids went back to school. We then had a new problem. Short staffing during break cycles meant our ticket times would skyrocket during rushes. Management then lifted the rules so that employees on break could clock in early and help out with the rush. However, the district manager didn't like the implications of employees working shortened or no break shifts and forcefully reinstated the rule. They also doubled down by saying that employees who tried to work during their scheduled break would be written up or even terminated for doing so. And so this is where our malicious compliance comes into play. And trust me, this is a good one. The date was 4/20, which is a day that nobody wants to be working at a fast food place, much less McDonald's. We had been getting slammed so hard from the open of the store that we called in extra help from other stores, including the regional and district managers. As the break cycle began, the management was pleased with the sub 2-minute ticket times that they had managed to maintain. We had a few breaks though, and we were managing well. Then came my break. As soon as I sat down to eat, someone came into the store and ordered 47 double quarter pounders, and then immediately after that order, someone in the drive-thru ordered 75 20-piece nugget meals. The amount of panic in the kitchen was palpable. I was comfortably lounging in a chair, browsing my phone, and enjoying my meal while the kitchen struggled to keep up with the orders. As ticket times began to soar, the management did exactly as I expected. The district manager came into the break room and demanded me to end my break early and help in the kitchen. But my response was simple. I'm sorry, but according to the rules you made, I could be written up or terminated for completing your request. Then, after I said that, I continued browsing my phone, trying to enjoy the last 10 minutes of my break. The regional manager then entered the room and said that he would personally terminate me if I didn't do the thing I wasn't supposed to do. The other employee who was on break with me immediately rose and clocked in, despite still having 10 minutes left on her break. She was then written up for breaking the rule after the shift was over, so I felt good sitting in my chair and continuing to ignore them. In the aftermath, the people who made the giant orders took what was made after half an hour and left with refunds for unmade food, and we're talking maybe $150 each. And customers who were waiting for smaller orders were compensated with gift cards for their patience, and yet many walked out without even getting their orders. In fact, we paid out nearly $1,500 in gift cards. Now, because customers were walking out on orders without collecting them, we had nearly $5,000 in food wasted that night. All of the closers went home with nearly 2 bundle boxes of burgers, fries, and nuggets. Well, the regional and district manager were moved to a different region, and the rule was edited to say that you were able to clock back in early at the manager's discretion in the event of a rush. Because I was the only employee who held his ground against the regional and district managers during the rush, I was rewarded with free meals and drinks until I moved away from my hometown and simply couldn't eat at that McDonald's anymore, because this experience was truly exhausting. Wow, I love the double standards here because this is honestly so unbelievable. The district and regional manager both are like, listen, I need you to break the rules or else I'm gonna break the rules by firing you. And it's like, dude, instead of complaining to me, maybe pick up an apron and do the work yourself. Like, if these people actually cared about their job and getting these people through and getting their orders to them, then they would roll their sleeves up and help out. But instead, it's pretty obvious they'd rather drag you into it and be like, no, you do this. And that is really unfair in my opinion, and I just don't blame you for being annoyed by this. So good for you for getting some petty revenge, as well as like throwing this right back in their face. Because from the sounds of it, these people absolutely deserve it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My mom meddled in my first job and ruined our relationship, and I'm now at a breaking point and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Months ago, I graduated college and I got my first job. For reference, I'm 22 years old and my mom is 60. I would tell my mom how miserable the job was making me, but she would ignore my pain and say that I should keep the job for at least a year so I don't don't look like a job hopper. She continued putting so much pressure on me to keep the job that eventually I simply couldn't take it anymore. So I came up with a plan to do 2 weeks of work off the clock so that I could just quit and leave. My mom was happy about me doing that, which looking back, I find absolutely repulsive. When I quit the job, my boss, who was a 70-year-old female, was super mad at me and demanded that I do more tasks and went as far as contacting my mom and sending my mom the list of things that she wanted me to do. And you know what? My mom took my boss's side. My mom could have ignored my boss's text messages and could have let me be the adult and handle it myself, but she had to insert herself as the authority in the situation and monitor me and put as much pressure on me as possible so that I would obey her and my boss. My mom even threatened to erase my hard drives, which had all of my most important memories and projects on them. I then wrote my mom a letter to say how much she hurt me, which made her more rageful, and she threatened to abandon me and make me pay her mortgage since she would be gone. But I'm used to her threats of abandonment. It's kind of typical. So eventually I gave in and I dropped it and we just moved on. Since then, she would bring up my first boss into any and all conversations, thinking that there weren't still any hurt feelings and we could just laugh about it. I would be tremendously triggered, but I'd hide it and just carry on. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore, and I said, I don't want you bringing up my first boss. I don't find it funny. And she sort of respected my wishes. In an ideal world, I wouldn't have to forbid my mom from speaking about certain topics because we'd have all our hardships resolved, but we never resolved this hardship and it was festering into a landmine that makes me bitter for days when she brings it up because she still has never acknowledged her wrongs or has shown any remorse for meddling and causing damage that I still have to live with. I want to talk to her about it, but it will cause a war. But I feel like I can only let go of my resentment by receiving closure and finally resolving the situation. What should I do? Oh man, if this was me, I would absolutely be looking to move out. The original poster clarified that yes, they do live with their mom still, and that in my opinion is crazy. Like seriously, she meddled in your first job and literally like ruined everything for you. They also go on to explain that their former boss found out about their mom by literally going to the emergency contact and contacting her that way. And that is crazy toxic. Like you already quit that job, you gave them 2 weeks notice. So the fact that your old boss and your mom all pretty much like teamed up against you is just so weird. And she's now bringing it up all the time like it's some funny thing. But it's like, no dude, you literally did not apologize for this. So I think if I was in your shoes, I would be trying to move out as soon as possible because what she did to you, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. My entitled managers make my life a living nightmare after they make a big fuss out of me taking time off of work because of strep throat. But in reality, I find out I have cancer, putting them in their place in a way that they truly did not expect. Here's what happened. In 2010, I worked at a corner drugstore as a department lead. I was 22, I did the bare minimum, and I hated working Sundays, which were basically my Fridays. I will be the first to admit that I could have been a better employee, but I knew this wouldn't be my career and I was just coasting until I graduated. Sunday, May the 2nd rolls around and I felt awful. I had already not been feeling great, and that Friday I was a bit under the weather. When Saturday came around, I felt pretty okay, but then Sunday hit like a stack of bricks. About 2 hours into my shift, I asked my manager, who we will call Ryan, if I could go home. The guys in management despised me, so I was not surprised when this particular manager pretty much snarkily responded by saying, "You need to get someone to come in and finish your shift." And it's like, fine, okay, no problem. So I called one of my coworkers and she came in for me. My boyfriend at the time was working at a hotel down the street, and we also shared a car, so I went to his hotel to sleep until he got off of work. I slept in the lobby for 9 hours straight, but when we made it home, I started coughing up blood. My boyfriend then forced me to go to the ER that night, and it was there that I was diagnosed with strep and admitted to the hospital. That Monday on the 3rd, one of the nurses informed me that I would be in the hospital for at least a week, so I called the store to let them know. The manager I spoke with, who we will call Brad, hated me more than anyone else at that store. I told him the news and he said to me, "You'll be out for a week because of strep throat?" I then said to him, "Yeah, I mean, do you want to talk to the nurse? She's right here." Brad responded by saying, "No, we'll see you back when you get back." He was clearly irritated by the news, but there was nothing I could do about it. Now, what I hadn't told him, as I didn't know at the time, is that I was admitted because the hospital suspected I had something much worse. I was visited by a doctor on Monday who explained that he'd like to perform a bone marrow biopsy. Now, I had no idea what that was or why he would want to do one, except that my blood count looks really weird. I had the procedure done and continue recovering from strep, and on Tuesday, May 4th, the doctor from the day before pays me another visit. They say that they got the results back, and apparently I've got an aggressive form of leukemia that requires immediate treatment. They then said that they'll be sending me to a hospital in a big city to start chemo tonight. Well, my world was turned upside down. I called my best friends, all of whom I worked with, and I invited them to the hospital to share the news. One of my friends had a shift that afternoon and broke the news to the store. They said that I had cancer. I then spent 28 arduous days in the hospital fighting for my life. My mom had visited my store a few times during my hospital stay and talked with my store manager, letting her know what was going on. My manager was very understanding and supportive, but the other managers never said a word to me, my mom, or my friends about the situation. When I finally got out of the hospital, I went to my old store to pick up my maintenance cancer medications. As I made my way back towards the pharmacy, where I was bruised, bald, with a bright purple PICC line sticking out of my arm, I turned down aisle 10, and who do I just so happen to see? None other than Ryan stocking the vitamins. I say gleefully, "Oh, hi, Ryan." And trust me when I say this, the look on his face was priceless. Ryan says to me, "Oh my God, are you okay? How are you feeling?" I said to him, "I'm great now, thank you. It's a good thing I left early that Sunday and ended up in the hospital, so they found the cancer." And you know what? The whole situation was absolutely delicious. Despite everything I went through, the feeling of complete vindication when they had to face my cancer-ridden self was incredible. I never ended up going back to work there, and I had to file for disability because the next 5 months of my life were week-long hospital stays, followed by constant transfusions, checkups, and even a case of sepsis that almost took me out. But either way, I still remember Ryan's face, and it all still brings a smile to mine. Wow, talk about like the best unintentional revenge you could possibly have. I think anybody who's worked a job can understand that sometimes you just have coworkers who suck. They hate you for no reason, and it really is so frustrating to deal with. And to that extent, I'm sure it felt really good to get back at Ryan and Brad in a way that you probably did not expect. Like seriously, Brad was acting like, "Oh, you're in the hospital for strep throat?" It's like, "No, dude, I've got cancer. I just don't know it yet." And what kind of manager would be like, "Oh, wow, whatever. We'll see you when you get back." Or even like wish you well and be like, "Oh, I hope you get better soon." Like the both of them are giant pieces of garbage, and that is so uncalled for. So I'm glad you're better, and I'm glad you got your revenge, because those two guys absolutely deserved it. My parents are so distant from me that it really breaks my heart that they weren't there for me in my time of need, and now I honestly don't know what to do. Okay, so my parents have always been very nonchalant when it came to me. Being the eldest of 3 siblings, I always got the least amount of love and attention with the most amount of responsibility. I think I knew that growing up, but didn't really let it affect me too much. While my 2 siblings needed more attention, I was pretty sidelined. Again, I didn't recognize that too much, or rather suppressed it enough. I dormed from when I was 18, followed by living on my own and then with my husband. My mother would only call me if I called her, never once visited my dorm or my apartment, and now only has been to my house 2 times. And you know what? I adored my family. My dad was in the military, so we were his luggage our whole lives, moving from 6 different countries and 4 states by the time I was a teenager. I mean, they are all that I have, just the 5 of us. I didn't bother making friends because what's the point? We were just going to be moving again. I didn't have any other family around me, so it was honestly just them. Now, this next part is what made me realize that I needed to take a break from them. My husband and I recently started trying for a baby, and a couple of weeks ago got pregnant, and within a week had a miscarriage. Emotionally, it was sad, but physically, it was one of the worst pains I've ever been through. In fact, the miscarriage wasn't complete, so they had to intervene with medicine. So for the first 3 days pre-medication, I had a lot of pain, some fever, some chills, followed by taking the medication for another 4 days, which was an absolute nightmare. I mean, my husband had to literally hold me down as I screamed viscerally out of pain. When the miscarriage initially happened, I had let my mother know about it, and honestly, I just don't know. I have expected her to maybe come and see me, or even help me with a little bit of food or something like that. For reference, we live about 17 minutes away from their house by car, but during those 2 weeks, she only called me twice. When I texted her why she didn't stop by, when she told me that she would in one of the calls, she said that I didn't call her back to confirm. And mind you, I had a fever of 102 degrees Fahrenheit. I've seen my mother make heaps of food and dishes when her friends are sick, or when her friend had just moved into a new house and their kitchen had not been set up yet. And even still, there she was with multiple dishes at tow. When her friend's daughter was too pregnant to do anything, she cooked a week's worth of food for her. But her own daughter was in pain, going through something emotionally and physically breaking. And yet still, I got nothing besides what, 2 calls? I know I have pretty much taken care of myself my entire life. I always said I don't need anybody else, and I lived by myself for years. In fact, I've been through any heartache or life issues by myself, but this, however, I honestly just don't know how to feel, because this feels so much more painful. This hurts a lot, and I'm not sure why. I cried so much. I mean, maybe it's the hormones, not having any other family to rely on, no aunties or cousins. Even my dad works a lot and is not very emotionally available, and my siblings are too self-involved for me to even confide in them. I thought that my mom might want to be there for me, so that is why this hurts so bad. Since the 2 calls weeks ago, I haven't even bothered calling her. Today, she called me and you know what? I just didn't pick up. I think I just need a little break from her and from all of them. This is going to sound insane, but I've been fantasizing about pulling a Julia Roberts character from Sleeping with the Enemy and just relocate and leave everyone here behind. New name, new stories, new friends, everything. It's been a semi-toxic disassociating cope, even though weirdly enough, it does put me at ease. What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, I am so sorry this happened to you. Really, like that is so hard, and I'm so sorry that you had to go through that literally by yourself. Your mom wasn't even there for you, and literally nobody else in the family even like gave a crap to like talk to you about it. And I can only imagine what that's like, and truly from the bottom of my heart, I really am so sorry that you had to deal with that. So with all things considered, I don't blame you for taking a step away and trying to have like some kind of distance, because if I went through something even remotely close to that, which I don't think I ever will, and I had family who just didn't care and didn't reach out, I would be heartbroken as well. So your feelings are definitely justified, and hopefully this all works out, because the way your mom treated you is completely unfair. Am I the jerk for not offering to split gas money on a road trip that I literally did not even want to go on? Because right now I feel bad, and I seriously am not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, so last weekend, I, a 24-year-old female, got dragged into a spontaneous hiking trip with my friends who we will call Jason and Lily. And for reference, they are a couple. We were hanging out Friday night at their place, and I was already half dead from the work week, and I had way too much wine, so I just crashed on their couch. Saturday morning, I was super hungover, like dry mouth, hoodie over eyes level. All I wanted was some water, maybe a hash brown, and no human interaction. But Jason was already up and buzzing about this hike 4 hours away. And you know what? Lily was into it too. I said very clearly multiple times, I'm down to hang out, but I'm not hiking. I feel like crap. Well, they were like, oh, come on, you'll feel better once you're out there. It's mostly all flat. Well, I didn't push back hard enough, I guess, and I wasn't trying to be a buzzkill, because the next thing I know, we're in Jason's car, and I'm wedged in the back with my hood up and a bottle of Gatorade. Now, as a bit of a spoiler for the story, I never hiked. We got there, I walked to the trailhead, and then I just sat in the car with the windows cracked, reading a paperback I found in the back seat. They were gone for about 3 hours, and they came back very sweaty and glowing and very into themselves. I clapped politely, and then we drove back. Then, on the drive home, Jason says as casual as possible, so if you guys could Venmo me $30 for gas, that would be great. I then hesitantly said, wait, are you serious? I told him that I didn't really feel comfortable paying for a trip that I didn't want to go on and didn't even participate in. I said it as lightly as I could. Like I even added a half laugh so it didn't sound rude, but neither of them responded. It then got weirdly quiet after that. Like not just, oh, we're tired quiet, but stiff, polite quiet. Lily scrolled through Instagram the rest of the ride. Jason turned the music up and didn't really talk to me again until they dropped me off. I texted later that night just to say thanks for driving anyways, and Lily replied with a thumbs up emoji. Not even like a no problem or anything like that, but literally just a thumbs up. I've been replaying it in my head because I do get that gas isn't free, but also I didn't want to go. And I said that, and I barely even left the car. I felt like I'd been held financially hostage for a vibe I wasn't part of. So seriously, am I the jerk for not paying gas money for a trip I got peer pressured into and didn't even get a chance to enjoy? Because right now, I'm not sure what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. This honestly, in my opinion, is so toxic. You mean to tell me that they drag you along on this trip, leave you in the car with like nothing but like a cracked window and a book to read, and then when they're driving back, expect you to pay for gas? Like, no, I don't think so. That's not happening. That sounds like an awful plan, and I can't believe they try to like guilt trip you into doing that. I think in the long run, it would be good to like set boundaries more firmly and tell them, hey, if I don't want to do something, I'm not going to do it. And that probably could have helped you avoid this situation entirely, but in my opinion, these guys are absolutely the jerks, because they literally went on this hike and left you alone. And the fact that you didn't even participate in it and you were basically just like an unwilling accomplice, in my opinion, is the biggest indication that this is nothing that you need to pay for. An entitled college student gets her laptop repaired, but then she never picks it up, forcing my brother to sell the item off as his policy pretty much dictates that he has to do so, resulting in this lady demanding $2,000 from my brother even though she abandoned the product at his store. Here's what happened. Okay, so my brother Nate runs a shop in our small town that offers electronic repairs. Last year around June or July, this girl came into his shop needing her laptop repaired. It was an Alienware gaming laptop and it looked relatively new. The girl said that the battery wasn't charging anymore, and Nate said it looked like something was inserted into the charging port that shouldn't have been, and the port had been damaged. Nate told her that he would have to order parts and it might take a week or more before it's fixed. Now she said it was fine and started filling out all the paperwork. She then mentioned that she wouldn't be in town to pick it up, so the phone number was for her mother and she could come and get the laptop when it was ready. Nate said that that was fine and he would put a note in the system. Well, fast forward 3 weeks and it was finally fixed. Nate then goes to call the number and it says that the number has has been disconnected. We live in a small town, but neither of us recognized this girl to try and track down her folks, so it just sat for a few months. Nate also has a policy in the contract that basically says that any repaired item not picked up within 90 days of completed service will be put up for sale by the business and can be sold. Well, Nate was generous and gave her an additional month before putting it up for sale. He then got an offer the same day he put it on the shelf, and it was sold as a refurbished item. Well, fast forward to last Thursday, and the girl finally showed up to get the laptop. She left to go to college and was in town for a long weekend and found out her mom never got the laptop. It turns out the girl wrote down the wrong number, and obviously she was pissed off that it got sold and is now demanding my brother to pay her $2,000 so that she can buy a new one. And we're honestly still blown away by her entitlement because this is truly ridiculous. Yeah, the lady in this story is a complete moron. Like, there's no way she didn't know about this policy. And the fact that she didn't follow up with her mom and be like, hey, did you pick up my laptop? Instead of waiting, I don't know, several months later, to me shows how irresponsible she is and how dumb she is. Because I don't know about you, but there's no way I would ever let a $2,000 laptop sit there and not have anybody pick it up, or at least account for it in some kind of way. I would be calling my mom constantly and be like, hey, can you check on that laptop or something like that? And it's also stupid that she completely wrote down the wrong number. It's like, my God, how is Nate or anybody at that store supposed to get anything to your mom? So yeah, that lady's a complete moron for doing this way, and she has no right to try and claim $2,000 from your brother, because this literally is her own fault since she's the one who put down the wrong phone number. An entitled worker at a bookstore I was visiting called me creepy and weird for going into their kids section and looking for books for children. But despite the fact that I was only trying to get books for my 5-year-old cousin, I decided to get some revenge by not only getting her in trouble with her manager, but also humiliating this employee in the process. Here's what happened. Many years ago when I was 19 years old, I was at my local Borders bookstore searching for a children's book or two for my little cousin's birthday. He was turning 5 and really enjoyed reading whatever kids books he could at his young age, so I thought I would support the habit. So I enter the Borders and head straight to the kids section, and I look around, picking up some books that looked like they would interest my little cousin, and even laughing at some of the funny ones that I saw on the covers or the first couple of pages I flipped through. Now, as I was minding my own business, I get a very firm poke on the back of my shoulder from a very disgruntled employee. The employee starts to tell me that I must leave the kids section immediately because it is only for kids 12 and under, and how inappropriate I was being, and also how creepy I was being for looking at children's books. I let her go on and on until I had had enough and decided it was time for some very petty revenge. I let her finish one last sentence, and then I said to her, I totally understand. I'll make sure to leave the kids section as no adults are allowed to be here. So I literally took about 10 steps to my left, which put me outside of the clearly carpeted boundaries of the kids section. I stood there as the employee kept looking at me, and as soon as I saw a mom and dad walk into the kids section with their 2 kids, I regretfully informed them that the kids could stay and look around the section, but the parents would have to leave as they were over the age of 12. Now, they of course were questioning my authority to tell them to leave the kids section, and rightfully so. And as luck would have it, the employee from before came charging over apologizing to them for my remarks and explained that the kids section is not only for individuals under the age of 12. Well, as soon as I heard those words leave her mouth, I of course questioned her, and I asked why she would have told me the opposite just a few minutes ago and have me leave the kids section. Now, at this point, the couple just demanded to speak to a manager, and again, rightfully so. The manager came over and asked for everyone's side of things, and when I told him I was there to buy children's books for my cousin, he asked why there was a problem in the first place. So I replied by saying, I'm not sure. Ask your employee. She's the one who approached me for looking at books. I was just informing other customers of the store policy so that they didn't get reprimanded like me. Well, the manager immediately turned red and walked over to his employee. I couldn't hear everything he said, but I could imagine him saying, we'll talk about this later. This is the second time now. So I can only imagine what trouble she got into. After he finished telling his employee that they would like to speak later, he came back over to me and the couple. I then started this part of the conversation off by apologizing to the couple for making them and their kids my case in point, to which they said they understand now that they see what happened. The manager apologized to them as well, and then to me for his employee's behavior, and explained that there is no such rule or policy, and that I was free to go into the kids section, get whatever books I want, and then check out up front. He offered to bring any children's books that I knew I would purchase to the front register and hold them for me so that he didn't waste any more of my time, and so that I could do one last quick visual sweep of what kids' books were on the shelves. After that, I thanked him profusely, and I told him not to worry about my time, because I've got plenty of time on my hands. I then sat down in one of the kids' chairs in the kids section, grabbed a book off the shelf behind me, and sat down staring straight at the employee until they walked away. Now anyways, fast forward and this Borders is now closed, so in the end I got the last laugh because that employee doesn't have a job there anymore. Wow, that seriously is so messed up, it's not even funny. I know this is painted as like a funny situation, but can you imagine going into a bookstore and having an employee be like, wow, you're being creepy standing there. Get out of the kids section, you're not allowed in there. It's like, dude, what are you talking about right now? The fact that she would profile the original poster like that is so uncalled for, and I'm honestly astonished that they weren't fired right there on the spot. But honestly, I love the way you handled this, and I love that you embarrassed her exactly the way she embarrassed you, because in my opinion, she absolutely deserved it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My 4th grade teacher literally called me the devil after I refused to help the classroom bully with any of his homework. So I decided to get some petty revenge by literally proving her right, where I signed her up for every psychic, tarot card reading, and medium service I could possibly find just to bother her to no end. Here's what happened. Okay, so this was about 9 years ago, and a separate post on another sub about prank phone calls brought this roaring back into my memory. I had a bully in 4th grade who was absolutely adored by our math teacher. She always made me help him, even though she knew we didn't get along. Anytime we got into it, with him bullying me and me standing up for myself and the other kids that he bullied, she would treat me like garbage afterwards. She was hyper-religious, and as a disclaimer, I'm not anti-religion, as I do have religious heritage myself, but she would refer to me as the devil whenever I upset her or her favorite student. Well, one day the student and I really got into it in gym class, and I fought back. Like, seriously fought back. I was stopped by the gym teacher, but of course the math teacher made me pay for it later by once again calling me the devil and treating me like garbage. So you know what? I decided to get some petty revenge by proving her right. I then spent a couple of weeks compiling a list of all the online psychic and tarot card readings and medium services I could find. Literally everything I knew that she would be against. Then, after the dust from the gym incident had settled, I signed her up for each and every one of these using her school-issued email. And you know what? The best part about it is that I never got caught. But I do remember hearing about some extra email protocols being put in place for teachers, and afterwards I smiled as sweetly as I could at her every single time we interacted. I laid the cheese on thick and started purposefully misleading my bully whenever I helped him with math, all while watching her nerves and his grades spiral into the drain. Oh my gosh, your 4th grade teacher sounds like a nightmare. Like, don't get me wrong, kids at that age can be absolute little demons, but you don't say it out loud. You don't look at the kid and be like, you're the devil. You say that in private amongst other teachers, like that's really how you do it. So the fact that she verbalized that to one of the kids she was supposed to be teaching is crazy to me. It makes no sense, and there's just no good reason for that. But I've got to say, with all things considered, I love the way that you handled this, and I love the fact that you started misleading that bully, because there is no reason you ever should have had to put up with that, because the way she treated you was incredibly toxic. Am I the jerk for not apologizing to my sister just to make my mom happy and keep the peace? Because right now she's guilt-tripping me incredibly hard. Here's what happened. Okay, so me and my sister have always had a tumultuous relationship. We fight, we make up, we get really close, and then we fight again, and that circle just continues over and over again. In fact, we are polar opposites of each other. She's more of the rough and tough type of person. She has snakes, lots of tattoos, she shaved half of her head, and she works in construction. Whereas I'm more of the girly and rigid type. I like to read, I have a kid, and I work in the beauty industry. For a while, I've been expanding my business, and while expanding, I needed to have some different flooring installed. After a few independent contractors fell through, I decided to ask my sister. And normally, I wouldn't mix family and business, but the deadline was approaching fast and I had no one else to ask. My sister was shortly between jobs, so I asked if she would be willing to do this for me while she had some spare time. She told me it wasn't a problem and she could get it done within my time frame, which was about 3 weeks before the deadline. With the deadline approaching, I asked her when she would be able to finish the floor and I got no response. The next day I asked again and I still got no response again. I repeated this the next day and finally I got a response from her. She told me that she didn't have the time after all because she has gotten the dates mixed up. Mind you, this was 4 days before my deadline, so I flipped out. The fight escalated and I told her that I was done with her and I really meant it. This was the last straw for me and I'm happy to be low or no contact with her. Now here's where I might be the jerk. I am really close with my parents. I see them daily, I go over for dinner about twice a week, and they babysit my kid every Tuesday. My sister is at my parents' place a lot too, so we're bound to run into each other. I'm okay with just downright ignoring her and doing my own thing because it's mostly just for a few minutes. I mean, she never stays for dinner and never has. But my sister keeps making snide remarks towards me. Now, my mom hates conflict and can't stand the thought of us fighting, and she told me verbatim that I'm in the right, but I shouldn't have reacted the way that I did. She wants me to apologize to keep the peace, but I just downright told her that was not going to happen under any circumstance. She asked me if I could just suck it up for her and the family, and I again told her no, and said that she should probably tell my sister to stop making comments so that there would be peace. She didn't agree with me and started to guilt trip me. Okay, so no Easter dinners, no family shoot, no holidays together, and so on. And I told her that was up to her, and I would be fine just ignoring her and acting semi-normal. But she didn't want to go that way though, which I do kind of get. So seriously, am I the jerk for refusing to apologize? Because at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I do see both sides of this, but I think you are more right than your mom. For starters, you could just apologize and get it over with, but also vow to never deal with that woman ever again. If it were me doing this, it absolutely would be a fake apology, and I would just slowly cut this lady out of my life entirely. But to me, I don't think that's the strongest reaction, because I think the way you're doing this right now, in my opinion, is the very best option, because your sister literally screwed you over, and if you don't hold your ground right now, you never will get a chance to do that ever again. And also, what on earth are you supposed to apologize for? You didn't do anything wrong. She's the one that strung you along all the way until 4 days before your deadline. Like, she nearly ruined everything you're trying to do, and now this is somehow your problem to have to like try and amend the situation. It's like, no, she's an idiot, and you definitely should not be the one to apologize. It should be her. So no, you're not the jerk at all. I think you're completely in the right for standing your ground and saying, hey, I'll at least be amicable, but I really will be ignoring her, because in my opinion, you didn't do anything wrong. And entitled Karen quite literally ruins my vacation to Egypt by constantly criticizing everybody around her in a way that forced me to snap and speak out, as I seriously could not take it any longer. Here's what happened. Okay, so this incident took place in 2007. I was 49 years old, and my 25-year marriage had ended 6 months earlier after it was discovered that she had been cheating with a high school crush that she reconnected with at an alumni dinner a few years earlier. We sold the matrimonial house, each bought our own place, and moved on with our lives. So my therapist told me, look, you're under stress. Take a long exotic vacation. Travel was something I was used to, and I'd already done many Amazing Race-style adventure trips with my family, and eventually I settled on a Gap Adventures trip through Egypt. 15 days with 15 people and a guided tour. And this sounded good, since Egypt was someplace I was always intrigued with. I hopped on a plane to Amsterdam, spent the day sightseeing, and then I was on to Cairo, where I then met up with the rest of the group Sunday night. So there was me from Canada, a middle-aged married couple, and a couple of young party girls from Toronto. There was also a young professional couple who worked at Blackberry from Waterloo, a middle-aged married couple from Australia who also brought his brother, a female couple from Alberta, a single lady from Quebec, a single lady from British Columbia, and finally a young single guy from Washington, D.C. So definitely people from all walks of life. We met at the staging hotel and introduced ourselves. I mentioned I was there to experience Egypt and nothing more. So on Monday, we toured the Cairo Museum and the pyramids. And on Monday night, we took a train to Aswan. Tuesday was free time and then a sunset sailing on the Nile. On Wednesday, we had the morning free. I had walked the streets alone the night before and the morning of, just to see and experience Egyptian life. I didn't hang with the rest of the group because all they did was sit together at the bar of whatever hotel we were staying at and drink beer each moment of their free time. But I was there to experience Egypt, and I figured that I could drink when I get back home. I mingled and interacted with the locals. I stopped at cafes and had coffee, tea, and bought delicious sandwiches from a street vendor. I had one on the spot and I kept another one for later. Also, it's important to note that I'm hypoglycemic, meaning that my blood sugar drops rather quickly, so I have to eat pretty regularly. Well, fast forward and I came back to the hotel and we checked out, where I then walked to the waterfront and boarded the sailboats on the Nile, which would be our home for the next 3 days and 2 nights, and sailing was starting at noon. The group spread out on 2 different ships, and as we set sail, I started to eat the second sandwich that I bought. Well, someone we will call Tracy from Alberta saw me and immediately went to our tour guide. Are we getting fed on this boat? The tour guide said, yes, in about an hour, we will pull off to the West Bank and we will have lunch. Well, Tracy turns to me, her lips pursed tight, and with a look of pure hate in her eyes. She then screams at me, why did you bring food when they will have food? Are you that stupid? I looked at her in puzzlement. I said to her, I have to eat every few hours. I've got blood sugar issues. But also, what business of yours is it what I do? And when I said that, she turned away in disgust. Later that afternoon, as we were tacking into the wind heading north, I pulled a cigarette pack size multi-band radio out from my backpack to quietly listen to local Egyptian radio. Well, Tracy saw me again and decided to chime in. She said to me, you don't honestly think you're gonna pick up Canadian stations all the way from here, do you? Well, I looked at her and I said, I'm listening to local stations, but again, why do you care? And after I said that, Tracy turns away in disgust. We then spend the night with a ship pulled up along along the West Bank, and we were told to go number 1, if you know what I mean, in the sandy dunes about 100 feet away. So I took my small LED flashlight out to see my way, pointing the beam down, and I found my way back to the boat. Tracy then said to me, "Put that flashlight away, you are ruining everybody's night vision." But you know what? I just ignored her. Tracy was in her early 20s and was also with her companion, a severely quiet woman of a similar age who probably didn't say more than 10 words to anyone the entire trip. We eventually made it to Luxor, and unfortunately Tracy was on my boat, never stopping her critical, condescending motor mouth chatter, criticizing everything and everyone. And you know what? Nobody stood up to her. She continued to berate me and a few others every chance she got. She then starts turning one against the other with gossip. We complained to the tour guide who told us it is not his place to interfere, but eventually I had finally had enough. And while on the bus to Cairo, after she started on me sitting on the wrong side of the bus, instead of where she thought I and a few others should be sitting, I decided to let her have it. I told her to leave me alone, to stop ruining everyone's vacation with her endless commentary about everything all the time. And trust me, she did not like that, but she did ignore me after that. Now, it turns out the Toronto couple cannot have children, so no matter where we stopped, they would seek out impoverished children and give them school supplies as a kindness gesture. But Tracy wouldn't have any of it and came down hard on the couple, saying that it wasn't up to them to give things without clearing it with the parents, lest they be accused of doing something sketchy. The Blackberry couple went out on their own one night in Luxor to a Chinese restaurant along the Nile. Well, Tracy heard about it and yelled at them by saying, "Why in the world would you come all the way to Egypt and go to a Chinese restaurant?" For the record, the tour guide was taking us to third-rate restaurants, getting a kickback from the owners, and then pocketing the budget difference. So basically, we were starving by the end of the trip. We went to Alexandria, then back to Cairo, and then across to Sinai, ending up in Dahab. The Australians had had enough and ended up leaving the group. No one was talking to anyone at this point except for Tracy, who continued her assault on other members of the group for every infraction that went against her incredibly pinheaded, narrow-minded, ignorant view of life and the world. We returned to the staging hotel in Cairo, and everyone parted ways and returned home. Over the following months, as some of us reconnected on Facebook, the topic was always Tracy and how her bitterness had ruined an otherwise amazing experience. Ever since that trip in 2007, I have made 32 trips to Europe, as well as the Middle East and Asia, whether that's solo or with a friend. And the last 9, I've gone with my new wife. In fact, we repeated the entire Egypt trip 2 years ago this week on our own. We looked at group trips in Morocco, Kenya, Patagonia, and each time, I shudder with the thought of another Tracy ruining the experience and decided to book something for the two of us instead of dealing with that ever again. Man, I can't imagine spending all that money, going literally around the world, and then having that entire trip ruined by some idiot who couldn't keep her mouth shut. Like seriously, the fact that the tour guide didn't say anything is honestly obnoxious. Like, I don't know about you, but if I'm giving a tour, I would want everybody to be happy. And if one of the guests is like disturbing everybody else, then they have got to either like shape up and fix their attitude, or they've got to go home or something like that. Because what you described is something that no one should ever have to deal with, especially with all the money I can imagine you spent just to go on this trip in the first place. Am I the jerk for getting into a fight with my fiance's mom and sister after I cleaned up their mess for nearly 2 hours? Because right now I'm being painted to be the bad guy, and at this point I seriously do not know what to do. Here's what happened. So me and my fiance are currently living in his parents' basement to save money for a house. We've been here for about a year, and at first everything was great. His family seemed genuinely happy to get to know me, would invite me to dinner often, and it felt like our relationship was growing in a really positive way. Lately though, things have shifted. I feel like they're just completely uninterested in anything I say now. One of the ongoing issues involves his sister, who is bipolar and very OCD, and she uses the laundry constantly. One time I moved her laundry because we needed to do ours, and I put it in a hamper that was already in the laundry room. Well, she got upset and said it was a dirty hamper, which I didn't even know at the time. We agreed after that to put her laundry in a plastic bag if we needed to move it, and honestly, fair enough, but her laundry is constantly in there. Another thing is that she often comes into the basement to take tobacco chops, which is basically bowls of tobacco inside of a pipe. And since I've moved in, she's started leaving piles of clothing, blankets, and shoes all over the couch. A lot of the clothes are actually ones that I gave her, but she's never taken them back upstairs. And lately, I've noticed it started to smell like smoke down here. Well, yesterday, I got into one of those cleaning moods. My fiance and I have been house sitting for my coworker this week, so none of the mess in the house was ours. When we got back, the kitchen was disgusting, and it literally took me 2 hours to clean it. There were dead flies, trash in the sinks, both sinks and both dishwashers completely full, and food that smelled completely awful. His his dad, who's been out of town, is usually the one who does the cleaning, and I really just didn't want him to come home to that. Now, we don't pay rent or contribute financially here, as they've refused it, so I try to contribute by helping out however I can. After cleaning the kitchen, I was still in the cleaning zone, and I went down to our basement space, and I decided to clean up the couch and put all of the clothing, including the blankets that smell like smoke, as well as 7 pairs of shoes into a bag, and I placed it by her door, just like my fiance's dad had told me to do before. Meanwhile, my fiance had just washed the blankets for me. Well, 2 hours later, his sister came storming downstairs, where she started slamming doors, throwing her shoes at the wall, and loudly talking on the phone to her mom, which was clearly on purpose so that I would hear it. She was cussing and talking garbage about me very openly, and this is not the first time I've heard her or his mom talk about me behind my back. Now, I didn't tell my fiance right away because he was at work. In the past, when I brought up drama, like the laundry issue, he got annoyed that I bothered him while he was working, so instead, I decided to keep quiet. Later that day, he called me to say his mom wanted to go out to dinner and asked me to go upstairs and ask about the plans. I then told him that I didn't feel comfortable going upstairs at the moment, and I calmly explained why. Well, once I did that, he was pissed. He called his mom and sister yelling at them, and when he got home, it escalated even more. I heard yelling that was completely out of control. His mom said it was petty for me to move her stuff, but I'm sorry, it's been down here for months, and it smells like smoke in my living space. She also said to me, "You just work my son up and get him mad at us," which wasn't my intention at all. I even told my fiance to calm down and go downstairs. I mean, I've gone from living alone to being around an entire family, so it's been a really hard adjustment for me. Then I overheard his mom say that I'm a hoarder, and that apparently people who come into the house have to look at that crap. Now, when I moved in, the basement was an absolute mess, but I've kept it clean and decorated it super cute. I also furnished a full apartment before this, so I've just got more stuff than my fiance because I lived alone. Well, I'm thankful my fiance defended me, but now I feel like somehow this is all my fault. Like I'm the reason there's now a giant fight in the family. It really hurts that they think I'm petty or trying to stir up drama when that's just not who I am. I have zero drama with anyone else in my life. So anyways, we're all supposed to have a talk when his dad gets back, and I'm honestly dreading it. So seriously, how do I handle this, and am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. You are not the jerk. This is so dumb. His sister is so obnoxious it's not even funny. Because here's the thing, if she really doesn't like people touching her stuff, then maybe, just maybe, she can pick it up and take care of it. She can move it to her own room and clutter it wherever she wants. And just look at the way she acted. This is literally an adult woman throwing things around the house and being like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they touched my crap." So no, you're not the jerk here, you haven't done anything wrong, and the fact that she would act that way, in my opinion, says a lot about her and totally shows her true colors, because she and her mom are incredibly toxic. An entitled Karen loses her mind after I tell her that her son is not allowed to smack the tank that's full of fish, resulting in one of the weirdest Karen meltdowns I've ever seen in my entire life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been working and helping at a small pet shop in town since I was 14 years old, and for reference, I'm now 20. I basically just helped around for 3 years, but after that, I've become an official employee. Even when I'm just buying fish food on my off days, I'll help out, and my coworkers would even ask me to help with customers when they were busy. I mainly got the job to get out and force myself to talk to people, since I'm extremely antisocial and also autistic. And you know what? It helped a lot. I've been a fish keeper since I was 4 years old, and I'm not talking goldfish in a bowl. Think more like full tropical with live plants. And after a coworker was fired for stealing, I quickly became the fish room guy for the pet shop. Everything in there is my job, and I absolutely love it. For those who don't know, banging on fish tanks is a big no-go. Almost every day, someone with a young child, sadly even adults, would walk in and tap or bang on the glass, and I would always ask them to stop, and they usually would. But unfortunately, that leads me straight to this fateful day where I meet a Karen and her child who truly blow my mind. This Karen and her 5 or 6-year-old boy walk in and go straight to the fish room. As always, I'm right behind them to help, and the kid wasted no time running to the tanks and being amazed with our large variety. Before I can even say, "Hello, how can I help you today?" this kid is full on banging on the glass. Like my coworker came in because she heard him doing it while he was screaming to his mom that he basically wanted everything. I politely asked the mother to ask her son to stop, since kids tend to listen to their parents better, but the following conversation took a turn for the worse. This entitled Karen looked at me and said, "Why? What is he doing wrong?" I said to her that banging on the glass stresses the fish out and can cause them to get sick. This Karen then looks at me with a scowl and says, "And?" So I continue and I say, "Well, it's not good for the fish. They could die if they're sick." This Karen then says, "Well, it's not my problem. Let him do what he wants." I then address the boy and I say, "Hi there, can you please stop? You're scaring the fish." And apparently that was the worst thing thing I could have done because this entitled Karen begins shouting at me. She screams out, "Don't you dare talk to my son like that." Now, it's important to note that I have permission by the owner to kick someone out if they're being disorderly. So I say to her, "Ma'am, if you don't stop yelling and get your son to stop doing that, I'll have to ask you to leave." This Karen then loses her mind. "Excuse me? You cannot talk to me or my son like that. Anyways, it's your fault he is still doing it. If you would just catch our fish, we would be gone by now." I say to her, "Ma'am, you have not even told me what you're looking for. How must I help you?" She then says something that honestly makes me crack up in retrospect, but she yells at me, "I don't know, you tell me." I say to her, "Ma'am, what are you looking for so that I can help you out?" But this Karen just responds back by saying he wants a fish. When I ask which one and how many they would like, she says to me, "I don't care, ask him. I'll be up there looking for dog food." The kid stopped banging on the glass by now since his mom was yelling at me, and I could see that he was a bit distraught. With the same friendly tone I've been using this entire time, I ask him what he wants and I get him 2 goldfish. The lady then complained to my coworker at the pay point about me, but it was there that she got a friendly last warning. But in the end, this entitled Karen was acting completely unhinged, and anytime I think about it, it honestly always cracks me up. Wow, I'm kind of surprised you even sold her anything at that point because my god, the second someone starts raising their voice, even after you have permission from the manager to kick them out, like at that point I would have been like, "Okay, you gotta go. Not only is no one gonna talk to me like that, but also you're literally ignoring the rules of the store." And it's like, seriously guys, in today's day and age, you're really gonna be smacking the fish tank? We've all seen Finding Nemo, but like, my god, there's no reason to keep doing that. Especially if you're watching your kid do it. Like, you know that's bad for the fish, but you're still letting it happen. But either way, you handled this way better than I would have, because that Karen would have been kicked out the second she raised her voice at me. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My idiotic supervisor refuses to get involved in a case that literally is going to get us sued, and only once the president of our company gets involved do they finally step up and try to do their job, resulting in her getting exposed for being a crappy supervisor, but also getting removed as a supervisor altogether. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work in human resources, and recently an employee called me with a rather serious concern, and this is one that I could not fix due to legal regulations. I explained this, and they said they needed the matter escalated to my supervisor, and they were considering taking legal action if it wasn't addressed properly. And I also want to say I'm sorry for keeping it intentionally vague, just to ensure the privacy and prevent repercussions for me. I talked to my manager while the employee was on hold, and they said they couldn't take the call to them right then, but to escalate it to them via the email thread this employee had also started. Well, I explained this to the employee, and they seemed reasonably happy, and I sent the email to my manager immediately after getting off the phone. A week later, my manager responds to the email thread, with the employees included, as well as adding me, and says they will have me handle this from here. Well, they never sent any other email, they never did anything to help out, and they just waited a week after it was escalated to them, and then immediately sent it back to me. I responded to the email without the employee included, and explained the situation again, reminding them why they said they would be handling it. They then told me that this was in my job description, and I had to handle this, as they didn't have any time. They also said that they never agreed to handle it. So with that bit of context, I decided to maliciously comply and handle it. I explained there was nothing we could do again, and that I couldn't provide them with any further assistance or escalate the case. Unsurprisingly, a few weeks later, we get a lawsuit. And guess who finally steps in to handle the situation? But guess what? It's too late. The CPO and the president were already involved, and I was able to provide the supporting documentation showing my supervisor refused to take over and prevent a potential lawsuit. Now, they didn't fire her, but she was removed from a supervisory position, so in the end, I call that an absolute win. Wow, I love it when supervisors are like, this is not my job, and you're the one that has to handle this. This isn't your job description, see you later. And only once it gets really bad, and they're like, wait a second, we're getting sued, and then one of the CEOs of the company gets involved, only then do they step up and say, oh, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And it's like, what are you doing? Where were you like a month ago? Not to mention the fact that she only wanted an email thread, so she could say, I'm not taking care of this, I never agreed to this, because she knows for a fact that because it's in writing, she can deny anything that phone call ever said. Like, seriously, what an absolute scumbag. So good for you for having that email chain, because actually that kind of helped you in the end, as this exposed your supervisor in a way that they will never recover from. My entitled mother opened up credit cards in my name and said that she would pay them off once her retirement money came in. But even now, she is still racking up debt on these cards, causing me a lot of stress and a lot of worry, as I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, at the beginning of 2023, my mother opened 2 lines of credit under my name without my knowledge, and this is all while I was a full full-time student, using them to cover bills and other expenses. Much later, I discovered both credit cards when I signed up for Experience Credit Report Services, and I saw them under my name. After I confronted her, she promised in both text messages and voice notes that she would pay off all the cards that she had opened in my name once she received her retirement money. Well, when the funds came in, she did pay off both cards. I then directed her to close the accounts since they were open without my full awareness. However, an argument ensued when she refused to close them, and she even said she would evict me if I filed an identity theft report or disputed any charges, which also, as a side note, I have documentation of her saying that. Now that I've graduated and am actively seeking full-time employment and a room to rent, I've noticed that she continues to rack up debt on these cards. Despite her earlier promises to pay them off, it's becoming increasingly clear that she may not follow through, and the debt is likely to keep growing. She justifies her actions by saying that she needed the cards to manage bills while I was a student, which I guess I understand. However, I have multiple messages where she explicitly agreed to pay them off, and all notifications and emails related to the credit accounts go directly to her and not me. As I plan to move out, I'm concerned about how to resolve this situation and free myself from the debt. Given the evidence I have of her promises to pay off the cards, what are my options for addressing this and protecting my financial future? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, this is seriously so bad. Like, your mom committed fraud. I'm sorry, but that's exactly what's going on. You can't open up credit cards on behalf of someone else so that they get stuck with a debt that you're racking up. That's illegal. You can't do that. So if I was in your shoes, the only option I would even have is to report her, regardless of whether or not she evicts me. Like, seriously, that is so messed up, it's not even funny. Because you do not deserve to be stuck with debt that you did not sign up for. And in my opinion, your mom deserves to pay for the crime that she is literally committing. A scammer tricks my brother into giving him $500 after he hacked my husband's Instagram account. So I decided to get to work by spamming him with so many spam emails that it allowed my husband to get his account back in a way that we truly didn't think would happen. And I've honestly never felt more satisfied about getting back at someone in my life. Okay, so Thursday night, my husband, my mom, and I go out to dinner with my brother. On our way home, my husband is driving and gets a message from one of his friends on Instagram asking for his help. They say they need help getting back into their account, and he said, "I've seen that screen. Can you help them, please?" And I just say, sure. Well, long story short, I accidentally fall for a hack on his Instagram, and he loses access to it. My brother, who for all intents and purposes is a bit of a moron sometimes, got asked by the person on my husband's account for $100. He sends the money, and then they ask for $400 more, and he sends that as well. And by the time he finds out it's a scam, he's down $500. And listen, I'm gonna be honest here. I'm both hormonal and bored, and this idiot used an email to contact my husband to get the code to get into Instagram. So at that point, I get to work. It started out with a scammer messaging my husband's fake Instagram last night. I play with him for a little bit over there, and he blocks the account. So I create a series of Instagram accounts and bother this guy for about 2 hours. When he blocks me on all of those, I decide to really ramp up the crazy. I message him via the email, and I let him know that this is far from over. He blocks me there as well, and when I should be sleeping, I painstakingly spend 6 more hours signing the email up for spam, religious groups, adult stores, literally anything and everything that would get him frustrated, and email him several times a day. And in the end, I didn't get to sleep until about 4:30 in the morning. Now, I don't think we'll ever get the $500 back, and that's a lesson my brother will have to learn, unfortunately. But we did end up getting the account back. I guess the spam emails worked, and the scammer must not have been able to get the Instagram notification in time to stop my husband from logging back in and locking it down. And sure, it was a lot of effort, but I'm currently out of work with not much to do in my small town. So it was fun to mess with the guy for a while, and it was totally worth losing sleep to make sure that this got done. Yeah, this is seriously so stupid. First off, the brother in this story is an idiot. Anyone that says, "Oh yeah, I need some money real quick," I'm gonna call them up and be like, "Hey, what's going on? Explain your situation to me. Is there anything else I can do for you?" or something like that. That way I can at least have some kind of empathy for their situation and understand why they want that money in the first place. And for me, if I don't get any of those details, then I'm like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry, I'm hard up for cash," or I'll make any other excuse because honestly, I'm not gonna be scammed like that. So for the brother to fall for that is honestly so dumb. That should not have happened. Like seriously, across the board. He didn't think for a second to text his brother and be like, "Hey, do you really need that money?" or something like that, especially $100, not to mention an extra $400. Like, are you kidding me right now? What's going on? But I think you really did make a big difference by getting all those spam emails sent his way, because I guarantee you that smokescreen is the only reason your husband got his account back, because I am seriously convinced that that made all the difference. An entitled couple honks their horn at me literally the second after the light turns green, so I decide to confront them and humiliate humiliate them in a way that they truly were not expecting. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I was on my way to pick up my boyfriend from work after delivering my Uber Eats orders. On my way there, I pull up to a light, and I'm the first in a single line of cars. The second the light turns green, the shiny new black Palisade behind me lays into their horn. So, annoyed, I slowly make my way across, and about halfway in, I go back to normal speed, just to let the cars behind me make it too. Now, on the main road, I notice them keeping up with me but lagging behind a car space. We pull up to a light within 20 seconds, and I decide to confront them. I put on a worried look as I roll down my window, and they roll theirs down as well. Inside, I see just what I expected. What looked like a 48-year-old Karen, complete with a fake tan and crispy fake beach curls, and her aggressive mid-50s steel-faced husband. I look at him and I say, "Hey, are you guys okay? Is there an emergency or is someone dying?" The Karen looks at me and says, "No, it's just that you're driving like an idiot." I say to them, "The light just turned green, and you couldn't wait 2 seconds for me to move?" Her husband says, "You need to get off the road because you can't drive." I say, "Well, you need to learn some patience." The Karen then interrupts me and says, "Yeah, you're an idiot, and your right blinker is still on." I say to them, "Yeah, I know, because I'm going that way, you idiot." Karen then says the dumbest thing possible when she says, "Go back to Chili's," even though she meant Chile, the country, or wherever you're from. I say to them, "Whatever, you're not worth it. You're both not even worth it anyways." From there, I rolled up my windows and put my music back on as I ignored them. And to be completely honest, I'm fed up with these entitled older people, so it felt good to jab at them for their behavior. About 20 more seconds, the light turns green, and the SUV takes off to the next red. They seriously then try to cut me off, so I merge into the new right lane as I planned. But then they merge on there too, with a buffer car between us. And this guy, I'm sure he's probably gonna check me, follow me, or confront me physically if I actually turned with them. They're both at least twice my age. I slid back over a lane, back in the direction I meant to go, and I happily mashed my horn a bit and flipped them the bird as they were stuck going a direction they weren't even going. And it honestly felt so good to waste their time over it because their attitude was absolutely uncalled for. Yeah, screw those people. I hate people like that. It really drives me nuts. These people lay on their horn the second the light turns green. It's like, my God, have even a shred of patience. What's wrong with you? So I personally love this kind of revenge, and I think these people absolutely deserved it because their attitude was completely uncalled for. My best friends turned our living situation into an absolute nightmare, causing me to not only move out, but also get some petty revenge by taking everything with me that I ever brought to that house. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I lived with all of my best girlfriends in a cute house. Shortly after moving in, I got more serious with my boyfriend, and things got hostile really quickly. As it turns out, he was a textbook narcissist and wouldn't let me go out with them anymore, and it created a huge gap in our friendship that heavily relied upon drinking and partying. I stopped getting invites to outings, and they would throw huge parties without telling me, bounce balls on the floor above my head, and they would sneak into my room when I was at work and just snoop through my stuff. Now, we were all young, and looking back, it was definitely a shallow friendship. Literally a situation where girls were being mean girls. Well, I finally got them all to sign a document releasing me from the lease, and I got a new place with my boyfriend as fast as I could, and I was out of there within a month. I worked at Home Depot, so I got a lot of cool or essential things for the house. But on my last day, I was determined to take every single item that was mine. I felt like the Grinch unscrewing all my light bulbs, taking all the toilet paper, the nails in the walls, literally anything and everything that I brought to the house, I took it back with me. And finally, for the best part, I licked every single piece of cutlery in the kitchen and put them away. To this day, I don't think it was enough, and I haven't spoken to any of those girls since then, but it brings me so much joy knowing that they would go into rooms and try and turn on lights, but there were no light bulbs within sight. Because trust me, these people deserved it more than anybody else. Okay, honestly, this has always been one of my biggest fears, especially when it comes to moving in with friends, or even the possibility of moving in with them. Because you're no longer just friends who see each other for a few hours and then head off and go back to your own space. You're suddenly on top of each other, and there's no way you can ever get away from that. So thankfully you got out of that house and you were able to have a new life with your boyfriend, because these people sound absolutely awful. And if I was in your shoes, I would not want to deal with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not personally texting my coworker that I wouldn't be riding with her to work this morning? Because right now she is freaking out on me, claiming that I've been using her and that I'm a bad friend. And at this point, I'm honestly super confused and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I recently started a job where my company provides accommodation. So my coworkers and I live in the same compound. I'm in training with 3 others. And for the sake of the story, we'll call them Anna, Julia, and Ellie. And Anna and Julia are the ones with cars. Anna offered to drive me and Ellie to and from work, saying it didn't make sense for us to Uber since she was going the same way anyways. We offered multiple times to pitch in for gas, but she refused, so we'd occasionally buy her coffee or lunch just to thank her. She would text in our group chat in the morning when she was about to leave, so Ellie and I could meet her downstairs. We usually left at around 7:15 in the morning, and this arrangement worked fine for 3 weeks. One morning, Julia texted the group at 7 o'clock in the morning, asking for help and then offered a ride. So I replied by saying, sure, I'll join Julia today, and she said she would leave at about 7:20 in the morning. When I went downstairs, I saw Anna's car still parked, which was really odd. Julia called her twice and got no answer, and I called once and I got no answer. On my second call, she finally picked up. I asked if everything was okay since we saw her car was still there, and she just said to me, yeah, I'll see you there, and then she hung up. Minutes later, she texted the group chat asking if we had left, even though I had just told her on the phone that we had. And when I confirmed, she replied by saying, thank you for replying, which in hindsight felt really passive-aggressive. When she arrived at work, she immediately started yelling at me in front of everyone. She was furious that I didn't even text in the group chat and that she waited there like a stupid person. I told her that I had texted her at 7 o'clock in the morning, but she insisted that I had not. Julia then pulled up the chat to prove that I did, but Anna snapped back that I should have personally messaged her. She basically wanted me to say, Anna, I won't be joining you today. I will be going with Julia. Then she said to me, I was good while I provided Uber services, but the moment I'm not needed, I don't even deserve a text. Now at this point, I was shocked. She was the one who offered the rides in the first place, and now she was making it sound like I had been using her. I reminded her that she always refused gas money and that we often bought her coffee and food as a thank you, but she doubled down, acting as if I had disrespected her. The rest of the day, she ignored us, barely participating in any training, and when it was time to leave, she suddenly said, okay girls, I'm leaving if you want to join. Well, Ellie and I felt too uncomfortable after her outburst, so we just politely declined and went with Julia instead. It's been a week now and she acts normal during training, but avoids us during breaks and leaves without saying goodbye. She hasn't brought it up again, and honestly, I don't want to, because I don't feel like I did anything wrong. Yeah, she is completely the problem here, and in my opinion, that is so weird. You literally messaged her in the group chat like she was wanting. Like you communicated to her and said, hey, I'm going with Julia, and the chat log says that yes, you did do that. So for her to act like some kind of weird victim and be like, wow, I can't believe you used me, while also projecting this weird savior complex, like seriously, this is dumb, and I don't blame you for being like, I'm not riding with you ever again. Because in my opinion, the way she's acting is so weird, because the message was already delivered. If she can send some passive-aggressive crappy remark by being like, oh, did you guys leave already? Oh, well, thanks for replying. Then you can absolutely also say, hey, I'm going with Julia, because that shoe could easily be on the other foot. You could turn around and be like, well, why didn't you message me personally? Why did you send it to the group chat instead of talking to me directly? Like, this is all so stupid. She's literally making a mountain out of a molehill. She even confirmed on the phone that she would see you there by literally saying, okay, I'll see you there, which implies that you'll see her at work. Like, what is happening right now? So honestly, I think the biggest silver lining here is that you now know that Anna is kind of crazy and she is not someone that you would ever want to ride with. Because clearly, if it doesn't go the way that she wants, she's not only going to play the victim, but she's also going to blame you in some kind of way, despite the fact that you communicated literally everything perfectly. An entitled Karen demands that she be allowed into the mall early, skipping ahead to the front of the line and claiming that she has important things to do and that she absolutely deserves to go first. Things were so weird that she even brought her own security guards that began barking orders at the mall security, stating that they had to comply and let her in. But fortunately, this Karen gets shut down in a way that is truly satisfying, making me glad that I was early just to see it all take place. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened yesterday, and I'm still trying to process the sheer audacity of it all, while also feeling very smug about the results. Okay, for a bit of reference, it is Ramadan, and like most malls here where I live, they open at 3 o'clock p.m. on weekdays and stay open until 3 o'clock in the morning, which basically means there's plenty of time for everyone to shop, eat, and do whatever else they need. But apparently that wasn't good enough for one ultra-entitled Karen who thought that she was above the rules of the mall. I got to the mall at around 2:30 p.m. to grab a good parking spot before the rush to catch some shopping for my wife. A few other cars had already started forming a queue outside the parking entrance, with all of us patiently waiting for security to open the gates at 3 o'clock sharp. Now everything was normal. That is, until Her Royal Highness Karen herself rolled up in her big black pickup truck with 2 private security guards in tow. She pulls right up next to the security gate, completely ignoring the queue of cars behind her, rolls down her window, and tells the mall security, open the gate right now, I have things to do. The guard politely tells her that the mall isn't open yet, and that she needs a queue like everyone else. But of course, Karen doesn't take no for an answer. She says to him, do you know who I am? Do you see my guards? I don't wait wait in lines. She then literally waves at her guards, who step out with all of their gear like they're about to escort her to the throne room, and they start demanding that security let her through. But the mall security, to their credit, stood their ground. Security said, "Ma'am, no one enters before 3 o'clock p.m. Please queue like everybody else." This entitled Karen then scoffs and pulls out her phone to record, demanding to speak to a manager. At this point, the rest of us in line are just watching in anger and disbelief, which is only further amplified due to lack of energy and just the sheer heat of everything going on. A few minutes later, the mall manager shows up, looking visibly annoyed. He walks right up to the Karen's car and, in the most CEO voice imaginable, tells her the following: "Ma'am, your guards do not dictate mall policy. If you want to enter, you wait like everybody else. Now take your guards and move to the back of the line." The Karen says, "This is unacceptable. I'll be calling my husband and reporting you." But just then, the manager cuts her off and says, "You can report me after you move your car." This guy was an absolute legend. And the best part is that Karen actually shut up and sulked off to the back of the line, with her guards looking completely useless. So the moral of this story is that even if you do bring your own goons, mall security will still not care in the slightest. And instead, you should respect people and try to not be a Karen like this one in the story. Okay, this Karen is an idiot. Like, she seriously had the audacity to go straight to the front of the line and pretend like she's some kind of hotshot, as if she's some kind of royalty that needs to be catered to right away. But it's like, dude, what are you talking about right now? This is not how this works. Just because you have security and are rich enough to have some doesn't mean that you're above the rules like everybody else in line. Like, that's really stupid. And it's like, these guys are fully decked out in like some dangerous gear, if you know what I mean, and they're demanding that this guy opens up the mall. Like, seriously, this is not some high-stakes situation. From the sounds of it, it seems like it's just some place to shop. Like, good lord, lady, calm down, it's not that serious. And in fact, the original poster, based on what they described, further explained that this literally is not like a war zone or anything like that, and there's no active conflict where they live. This Karen literally just had security to flex that she has money. So yeah, that Karen was completely out of line. She had no business acting like that, and I love the fact that the manager shut her down in the way that they did. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to drive 4 hours just so that my sister doesn't have to drive through New York City? Because right now my parents are really pushing for me to do this, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, my parents recently got my 19-year-old sister a new car so she would be able to drive at college. However, since buying her car, my parents have not let her drive from Long Island through New York City. One of them would drive her car a couple of hours, and the other driving another car. They would stop somewhere and then go home together, while my sister would drive the rest of the way to college through rural upstate New York. My parents said they were concerned about her driving past the city as she was inexperienced. At the time, I thought this would be a 1 or 2 time type of thing, and that they probably want to let her not only get used to the car, but also driving through New York City. Well, fast forward to today, and my dad was diagnosed with vertigo and is unable to drive at this time. So my mom asked me to drive with her instead. However, I objected. This will be the 4th time this has happened, and I would not be compensated in any way, namely gas money or literally anything. If this was the first time, I would understand. However, she has had her car for almost a year and drives frequently at school. I asked my mom if this is what my sister wants or if this is what she wants, and that my sister has a nice, new, safe car and in my opinion is more than capable of doing the ride. I feel like it's also a little wasteful with regard to gas and time. My mother responded saying that she is uncomfortable driving through that area. Then my mom asked if I had driven on the parkways with my sister, because if I have, I would not want her driving through the city. My parents both tried to get my sister to practice driving on parkways so she would be better or at least more comfortable doing so. However, she refused to practice, and my parents just didn't force her. And this is another reason why I don't feel responsible to help my sister avoid driving past New York City. Furthermore, I personally feel that if this is what my mom truly thinks, then my sister should not have received a new car. Additionally, I feel that my parents' plan doesn't provide for my sister to grow as a driver because there is no exit strategy so that she could eventually drive to school, including through New York City, on her own. In the past month, my mom has always emphasized with me that one day she will not be here and I will have to do things on my own, claiming, well, what would you do if I was dead? However, I feel the sentiment was lost with my sister because she is the youngest. Also, I want to stress that it is my parents who want me to do this and not my sister. She wants to drive on her own but doesn't want to fight my parents on the issue. However, my objection to this request has been met with my parents saying, this is only 4 hours of your life. Do it for us and not for your sister. I personally feel the request is frivolous, it holds my sister back, contradicts the purpose of buying my sister a new car in the first first place and warrants some kind of compensation to some degree for driving 4 hours. So seriously, am I the jerk? Because right now I don't know what to do. You're not the jerk. This is so weird. You mean to tell me that your mom, the only parent that actually can drive, is not willing to make that drive, but somehow says, oh, but you should do it? It's like, no, I don't think so. That's really stupid. Your sister clearly wants to make the drive, and that should be more than enough for your parents. I get that she's the youngest and they're like, oh, but our baby's driving to school. But for reference, the original poster is 22 and their sister is 19. You're not that much older than her. Like, that's only 3 years. And yet somehow they're okay with you driving it, but not her learning how to drive it for the first time. So no, this is so dumb. Driving 4 hours like that is a complete waste of your time, and this is something that your sister needs to do. And I just don't think you should be required to make that drive with her. My idiotic supervisor goes on a power trip, making ridiculous demands that truly don't make any sense. But today was her lucky day, as she finally got blamed for some of the stupid things that she's been doing on our shift, resulting in this lady literally never talking to me ever again. Here's what happened. So I worked as a night supervisor in a small private psychiatric hospital years ago. Department directors of individual patient units were on site from 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock p.m. Monday through Friday. So there was a bit of overlap in supervisory responsibilities between 3 o'clock p.m. and 5 o'clock p.m. Now, the director of the high security acute care unit did not care for me as a supervisor, nor even as a human being. She made it very clear that she is in charge until 5 o'clock p.m. and not any time sooner. At every chance encounter, she had some snide accusation or remark to make about the night shift, whether real, perceived, or imagined. Nothing I ever did was correct or good enough in her mind. Now, one day, the evening supervisor traded shifts with me so she could attend her granddaughter's school play that afternoon. On that day, I received oncoming report from the nursing director, including ongoing construction progress as the facility upgraded its appearance. About 1 hour into the shift, I had completed oncoming rounds on the second floor and had just arrived on the first floor when a fire alarm sounded. The hospital operator announced a code red on the second floor south wing, which is opposite and 1 floor removed from the acute care unit. And as a side note, it was later discovered the construction workers accidentally set off the alarm. Now, it's important to know that nobody was to evacuate their area unless they were in imminent danger, told to do so by a supervisor, or ordered by a member of the fire department. At night, everybody was in their beds, so all staff had to do was head count and shut all the doors. During daylight hours, patients were up walking around the halls. They were in group therapy sessions or with individual counselors. I instructed the charge nurse to gather all the patients and staff into a large day room, complete the head count, and remain there until the all clear was announced on the intercom. As I started to leave, the unit director entered and demanded to know why all the patients weren't lined up at the door. Well, stupid sleep-deprived me didn't understand that this was a rhetorical question. I started to explain that this was the safest way to keep track of this population, and they were in no immediate danger. Well, she didn't really wait for an answer, and she just started yelling for everyone to line up at the door and leave the building. Just then, 2 firefighters arrived and asked me where the exit was to the outside courtyard. I then pointed down the hallway to where the director stood, all with 25 confused patients and staff in front of the exit. The lieutenant got about halfway to the exit, stopped and looked at me and asked, "What in the world are these people doing blocking the fire exit? Who's in charge here?" Well, I walked up to him, pointed at the director, and I said, "She is." And then I immediately turned to walk off the unit, listening to the lieutenant loudly tell her that they should be in a room with the doors closed, not blocking an exit. They went on to say, "We need to get outside, and you put these people directly in our way. The alarm location isn't anywhere near you. You have multiple barriers and firewalls that must be breached before you must leave." And this guy went on and on. At the next all-management meeting, the hospital administrator announced that in the future, directors will stick to managing their individual department issues. Shift supervisors were to remain in charge of global hospital operations, including managing emergency evacuation of patients during fires and other building threats. And you know what? I consider this a win because that director never spoke to me ever again. Yeah, I love it when people who are on a power trip get put in their place, because the person you're describing in the story is absolutely that. There's some power-hungry idiot who just wanted to boss you around, and that literally is not fair. Like, that really sucks for you. So good for you for explaining to that firefighter exactly who really is in charge, because that lady absolutely had it coming. Am I the jerk for telling my friend to stay in her lane when she crossed a line talking badly about my son? Here's what happened. Okay, I need to provide a bit of backstory here as it will be important to this story. I'm a 21-year-old female and I have a boyfriend who is 25 years old. I have a sister-in-law who's around the same age as my boyfriend and the same as my brother. My sister-in-law also has this friend who we will call Rose for the sake of this story. Rose is not her real name. Now, on December 11th of 2024, I found out that I'm expecting my very first first baby with my boyfriend. And as all pregnancies go, as soon as a woman finds out that she's expecting, she will tell her close friends and family. I told my sister-in-law, and of course she couldn't keep her mouth shut and ended up telling Rose. Rose then contacted me and said, "Congratulations, I heard you're expecting a baby." So of course I asked, "Wait, how do you know that I'm pregnant?" As I literally didn't tell her, but she replied by saying, "Oh, your sister-in-law told me." I said okay and I let it go, as since it was my first pregnancy, I didn't want any complications. So fast forward to when I'm 15 weeks and 4 days pregnant, which is coming up on about 4 months of being pregnant, and I find out that I'm having a boy. I then went live on a social media app so that my other family and friends that couldn't make it could also see the gender reveal. After the party, I texted Rose to personally tell her that I was expecting a boy. Now, I thought she would at least say something like, "Oh, I'm happy for you, congratulations," or something like that. But that is not what I got. Instead, she snaps and in other words, pops off and screams at me, "I don't care what the F you're going to have, as it literally doesn't matter. I won't be able to see him anyways." I was quickly taken aback, and I responded with a simple, "What in the world do you mean?" She then puts in all caps, "You know exactly what I mean, don't play stupid." And I was even more shocked because she's never been this rude. Then after a few hours, it clicked that she exploded, saying that she won't be able to see the baby because of the fact that me and my boyfriend live 2 hours and 15 minutes from my parents and all of my close friends. It really hurt. But then she texted me talking about how I won't be a good mother and that she actually expects my baby to no longer be living in 48 hours after it's born. And when I read that, that broke me. I then snapped and texted her back. I said to her, "That's coming from someone who doesn't ever want to hang out with me, and when you do, it's only ever if I have money or if I'm driving my car. So please, just stay in your lane." I then proceeded to tell her that if she gets anywhere near my son, then I will personally have her kicked off all premises, meaning my parents' house or mine. Well, we haven't spoken ever since then, but it really leaves me wondering, am I the jerk in this situation for the way I handled this? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. Rose is out of her mind crazy. The second she said that line about your son is the second she needs to be cut out of your life permanently and forever. Like, this chick is insane. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be sharing this text message chain with literally everybody, even if you're afraid that it would make you look bad in some kind of way. Like, I would be screaming it from the rooftops about how this lady said, "Yeah, your kid's gonna be passing away in 48 hours, and you're gonna be a bad mother." Like, dude, what is going on right now? That is seriously messed up and you don't deserve that. And I even think you could have been a lot meaner towards this lady, because her attitude was completely uncalled for and you did not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for publicly telling my former coworker that I don't like them and that I could not recommend them for a job they were trying to get? Because right now I feel like I did this wrong and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I ran into my ex-coworker, who we will call Sarah, at a bar while I was out with friends celebrating my birthday. We worked together for 2 years at a fast food restaurant, and I left this job in January of 2025. She was a shift lead and I've never liked her. I didn't like her management style or her personality. She came up to me at the bar and we had a 10-minute conversation, and I thought it was cordial and polite. She was mostly asking me questions about my new job, and she asked me if I would recommend her for a job at my new company. I mean, I got a job at a call center and it honestly was nothing glamorous, so I told her that I wasn't comfortable with that, but she just brushed it off with a bad joke. I ended the conversation and walked to the table my friends were at, and Sarah actually follows me. I didn't notice until I got to the table and she sat down next to me. My friends introduced themselves and I, without thinking, said something along the lines of, "I don't like you, can you please leave?" Now, I have autism and I could tell that was not the correct thing to say. Well, everyone seemed uncomfortable and Sarah was visibly shocked and upset. And my friends were also shocked and confused because they assumed that Sarah was a friend or someone I invited to the table. I mean, they had zero context of who Sarah is. After that, Sarah made a scene and told me that I was rude, a jerk, and a bunch of other things. She said that I embarrassed her, but she embarrassed herself by following me to my table uninvited. And yes, she knew it was my birthday. I do feel bad and know that I could have formulated a polite response, but she's a former coworker and an unpleasant one. I have many stories about her, but the worst example is that she made jokes about my autism and deafness, and she did this multiple times. She is fake nice and her friendship style is bullying other people. I don't know what Sarah wanted from me, and I wasn't going to hang out with her, especially not on my birthday. So seriously, am I the jerk for telling her bluntly that I don't like her? Because right now I'm not sure if I made the wrong move. Okay, on one side of this, I do see that you probably could have said it a lot better, but based on the things she was making fun of you about, in my opinion, it seems like she really deserves this. Like, some people just don't respond to you saying, "Hey, I can't do that for you," or giving them a soft approach of some kind where you're like, "Hey, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but this is how I feel." So in this case, it sounds like Sarah would be one of those types of people who needs the blunt end of the stick so that she can know straight up that no, you don't like her and that you don't want her around. around. I mean, she even followed you back to your table as if you owed her something, and even had the audacity to approach you in the first place as if you guys were buddy-buddy. But in reality, she is literally just a bully, and you know for a fact she's going to you for some kind of like letter of recommendation because she can't get it anywhere else, because I'm willing to bet that she's burned every bridge around her, and so she's going to you as probably a last-ditch effort to get anything done. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. I think you handled this perfectly, and in my opinion, the fact that she freaked out on you says everything you need to know about her, because that's the real person you dealt with for over 2 years, and I don't blame you for shutting her down in the slightest. Am I the jerk for telling my husband to book a hotel for us while we attend my sister-in-law's wedding? Because I know for a fact that his family is going to treat me like garbage, and I'm honestly not looking forward to it. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I are going to be traveling soon to attend his sister's wedding along with our 1-year-old son. The plan was that we would land at our parents' place and attend one of the wedding ceremonies there. A few days after that, there's another wedding reception in my sister-in-law's soon-to-be husband city. My in-laws plan to book a few train compartments for the entire family, as well as an Airbnb for the 3-day stay there. Now, I really don't want to be in a confined space with my in-laws for that long, especially with my 1-year-old son. My in-laws and I used to be cordial with each other, that is, until my son was born. A few weeks after delivery, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law visited us to try and help out, but that's absolutely not what they did. All they did was just find any opportunity to hold him, regardless of whether he was asleep or in my arms, criticizing me for being too clingy with him when I would put my foot down, and basically started locking myself in my room with him, lament how poor my cooking was, and how sorry they felt for their poor son and brother who had to endure it. That is, until both my husband and I had had enough, and my husband hinted heavily that they had overstayed their welcome. Since then, I get hounded for not sending enough pictures and videos of him and how I dress him, and I'm seriously so grateful that we're far enough away that we see them rarely. I told my husband a couple of days ago that I'd rather we just fly from my parents' place to the other city and just stay at a hotel while we attend the second ceremony. My husband then said that that would make us look really snobbish, that he himself wasn't over the moon about the whole itinerary, but it was a family event and we should be with the family. The fact that he wasn't into it frustrated me even more, because we're literally like making all of ourselves uncomfortable for what? We got into an argument, his mother and sister's stay got rehashed, and I told him he was choosing to make me uncomfortable rather than potentially risk his family being offended. So honestly, am I the jerk for even bringing this up and saying that we should just get a hotel? Because right now I don't know what to do. Oh man, your husband's extended family sound incredibly annoying. They're the type of people who are more obsessed about your son than you, and they clearly just don't like you, and it's like they're saying it without really saying it. And that, in my opinion, is way worse than them just straight up saying, yeah, we don't like you. Because I would much rather have the blunt approach than someone pretending to like me, when in reality they're just being passive-aggressive and weird, while also doting over your son as if you don't even exist. So in my opinion, I think it's a good idea to get a hotel, especially because your son is 1 year old. You know for a fact that if you're stuck in that Airbnb for 3 days, it's going to be a miserable 3 days. You are going to be so unhappy with the way they're going to be treating you that you're really going to be wishing you had some kind of accommodations to get away from them. And your husband's completely wrong. If they seriously think that you look like snobs and might be offended by you not being there with them, it's only because they don't have the opportunity to treat you like crap. Like his family sounds like a bunch of bullies. They want to pick at you and poke at your insecurities and say all these terrible things, all under the guise of like, oh, we're just family. But it's like, if we are family, then why can't you treat me like family? Why am I instead treated like the black sheep of the family who can't do anything right? They don't see you as the mother of your child, but just like a caregiver. And they're treating you like, oh my God, you're keeping the kid away from us. But it's like, dude, this is my son. What are you talking about? The fact that they're trying to bother him when he's asleep or like, I don't know, in your arms, like that is super annoying. And I cannot imagine dealing with that for what, 3 days? Like, no, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to put up with that, and I'm not going to be in that situation. So no, you're not the jerk for asking for a hotel. Your husband's an idiot for not remembering the previous situation, and he is seriously acting so spineless. He needs to get a grip and say, okay, let me stand by my wife, because his family clearly treats you like crap, and that is not something you deserve in the slightest. An entitled neighbor demands that I move my car from out in front of their house, as they claim I have no right to park there, and that if I do park there again, they're going to report me to the authorities. So after receiving that letter, I not only took it personally, but I decided to get some revenge by not only happily getting the authorities involved, but also occupying the front of their house with as many cars as I could possibly get together. Here's what happened. Okay, about a month ago, I moved into a residential neighborhood, and it's important to note a few things as you read my story. My house does not have a driveway or garage, so I have to rely on street parking. This is not a gated or HOA governed area, and there are no signs, restrictions, permits whatsoever for street parking. This area is also also not walking distance to anything but other houses. So anyone parking on the street is either a resident of the area or a visitor of a resident, which basically means there's no random people trying to find short-term parking. Now, it's a quiet neighborhood, so I can usually find street parking in front of or close by my house. However, there is one neighbor that lives 4 houses down that feels that they own the public sidewalk in front of their property and constantly puts down cones to block off space that would fit about 3 cars. Now, I refuse to give them the benefit of the doubt that they do this to save spots for themselves because I take my dog on frequent walks and I've never seen them use these spots to park. Additionally, they have a long driveway that never has any cars in it and a detached garage, so they already have ample parking for their personal vehicles that I've never seen. On that note, I have literally never even seen these neighbors. Other than occasionally seeing lights coming from their backyard during nighttime walks, I would probably assume that there's no one living there. Shades are always closed in the front windows, and I never see any inside lights on from the front. One day I drove home and there was no parking available except in front of their house. It was late and I didn't want to park a block away just because of this entitled house. So I simply moved a couple of their cones to the sidewalk and I parked my car. The next morning I saw that they had moved the cones back to the street behind my car, which I had to move again to get my car out, meaning that they definitely noticed and acted upon my legal street parking. But you know what? I just shrugged it off. A week or so later, I couldn't find any parking again. So the exact same situation happened. I moved the cones and I parked my car. And what do you know it? The next day, I simply moved the cones they placed behind my car and I went about my day. Yesterday, I had the situation happen yet again. And as a side note, this is only the 3rd time in a month that I've moved the cones to park there. And as I take my dog on a walk this morning, I see a note on my windshield. It's not even handwritten and it's some kind of like printed note. It says the following: "This plate number has been turned into the parking enforcement. We encourage you to park in front of your own residence for the consideration of your neighbors." Well, needless to say, this note really pissed me off. First of all, if you believe in consideration of your neighbors, then you shouldn't be blocking access to public parking spots where your neighbors can park their car. Secondly, now you're threatening me for parking legally. It's like, do you want to start this fight? Because I will make you pay for it. And honestly, that is exactly what I started to do. My first revenge is that I called parking enforcement myself and I explained the situation, and the lady on the other end just laughed and said that my neighbors had no authority to give me any kind of notice like that, which I assumed to be the case. They also gave me a number to a Bureau of Street Services investigator who can come to take a look and then issue them a citation. Well, lucky for my neighbors, they are currently closed for the week as it is Friday afternoon, but trust me, I will be calling again on Monday morning. My second revenge is that I live with my girlfriend who has her car parked in front of our house. So you know what? I moved her car in front of the house with the cones to now make it 2 cars that they didn't want there. The added bonus is that she has a Tesla, so there will be cameras in case they try to do anything to either of our cars. Now, the potential third revenge is that if the citation situation doesn't happen or work out for whatever reason, I'm considering purchasing the ugliest, oldest, and cheapest car that I can find in my area and register it as a planned non-operational vehicle with a DMV and then keep it forever parked in front of their house. All things considered, I have no apparent reason why they wouldn't want to have anyone park in front of their house other than some simple aesthetic that they just want to maintain. They don't use the spots to park their own vehicles, and we would never have random people wanting to park there on a regular basis. But I'm honestly eager to see what happens because these people are absolutely out of their mind. Oh man, I can't stand people who act like this. The original poster states they live in Los Angeles, so literally there's no room for anyone as it is. So the fact that these people are like, oh yeah, we're gonna reserve all these spots in front of our house because we don't want people parked there. Like, that is so selfish and so messed up. They don't own the street. They can't just do that and get away with that. And I'm pretty sure this investigator is gonna have a field day with these people. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would be taking pictures of everything. I would save that letter and document it and take pictures of everything around you and really prove that these people are acting out of line, especially with them putting the cones right back around your cars. Like, are you kidding me right now? That is so weird. Like, seriously, get away from my car. Because in the end, I'm anticipating these people being proven wrong pretty much immediately because what they're doing is incredibly entitled. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for walking away when I was asked to apologize for something that I didn't do? Because right now I feel like I did something wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I used to be best friends with a guy who we will call Brad, as well as his girlfriend who we will call Diane. All 3 of us used to eat lunch together, along with a few other friends. I am usually very chatty and social, but my grandpa had been in the hospital the past few days, and I wasn't as chipper as I usually am. So when Diane asked me to go with her to throw something away, I said yes so I could explain the situation to her. And also for reference, this wasn't abnormal for us to leave the guys for a few minutes, as this was usually a chance for us to talk without them. When we were away from the guys, I apologized for not talking as much and explained how my grandfather was in the hospital. Well, she stopped me mid-sentence and said, "Do you like my shirt?" She was wearing one of those black shirts that was tie-dyed with a bleach heart, and when she said this, I was really confused. So I responded by saying, yeah, I guess. Can I get back to talking about my grandpa who's in the hospital now? She then proceeded to sigh before saying, "I guess." By this point, we had finally gotten back to Brad and the rest of the group, and they saw we were obviously upset and asked what had happened. Before we could explain, Diane had stormed off, leaving me to explain the situation. After I had said what had happened, Brad asked me, "Well, why can't you just say I'm sorry?" It's important to note that until this point, I had been apologizing to Diane no matter what, if I was wrong or not, and I did this simply because I thought it was better than fighting. However, after some much-needed therapy, I decided to stop doing that and had determined that I shouldn't have to always apologize when things aren't my fault. After he said this, I was almost in tears because I felt like all those months of progress were going down the drain, and this is where I might be the jerk. Instead of explaining why I was upset, just like Diane, I stormed away without explaining or clearing things up. As I walked away, I could hear Brad telling his friend, "Wait, what did I do?" Which just made me more upset. So am I the jerk for walking away instead of explaining why I was upset? Because right now I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Okay, I don't think you're the jerk, but I also think your friends are incredibly immature. Seriously, Diane storms off when you're about to be like, "Oh, I'm upset about my grandfather, it's not a big deal." Like, she literally is just super insensitive and doesn't care about your family in the slightest. And neither does Brad, like both of them really suck in my opinion. And the fact that Brad would even be like, "Oh, well, why didn't you apologize to Diane?" Like, that kind of behavior is super toxic and I can't stand that. Because you know what? I am a firm believer that you never have to apologize for something you didn't do. If it's not my fault and I had nothing to do with it, then congratulations, you are never getting an apology out of me. Why would you? That doesn't make any sense. It's idiotic and honestly, it sets a really bad precedent. So no, you're not the jerk for walking away because these people just don't sound like good friends in the slightest. And I really think that you can find better people than them. My entitled owner and employees claim that I'm not doing my job properly and that I need to work the front desk with all the other girls. But despite the fact that I manage a day spa and have a lot of other responsibilities, I'm getting paid a lot of money at a salary level for a job that I literally did not sign up for. Here's what happened. Okay, so I manage a day spa of about 25 employees, 4 receptionists, 2 phone lines, about 60 appointments per day, and we're open 7 days a week for about 10 hours each day. Now, at the time of this story, the receptionists have become disgruntled that I don't help them with their front desk duties as much as they seemingly feel that I should. And when I say as much as they think I should, what I mean is that they think I should be there 7 days a week from open to close doing their job side by side with them. But in reality, what they're really implying is that they want me to do it for them. Not only did they not even try to address this with me, but they went over my head and directly to the owner, who didn't even refer them back to me so that we could try to come up to some sort of understanding together. And instead of the owner letting them know I do a lot of other things, even when I'm not there to operate the business, and reminding them I have a lot of other employees and responsibilities to handle, he instead took their side, yelled at me for 4 hours, and then the next day yelled at me again in front of the one complaining to him for another hour. He showed these girls his support and offered me none, and ultimately said that I need to be up there working with them instead of handling other things around the spa. His reasoning is that they need help, and I should be at the desk at all times because I'm the face of the company. One of the girls told him, in front of me mind you, that all I do is laundry, but it's a day spa, so there is a lot of laundry that accumulates very, very quickly, and there's no one else to do it. It technically is a receptionist duty, and I tried to alleviate as much off of the receptionist as I could, so that is something that I've taken full accountability for except on my days off. When the owner tells me that I need to be up at the front, answering phones with the receptionist on duty, and that I need to arrive earlier to do this, you know, instead of him paying a second receptionist because he's too cheap and greedy to do so, I said to him, "You do not pay me to answer phones. You pay me to operate your business and keep things running smoothly in your absence." Well, his response was that he also doesn't pay me to do laundry, and that's what I do all the time when I'm here. And it's like, oh really? That's all I do? Yeah, okay buddy. This all took place about 3 days ago, and since then I do not leave the front desk, except maybe to go to the bathroom one time during my shift, despite the fact that I'm salary, so technically I don't have a shift. I just work a ton of hours, of course, with no extra compensation. But I have not touched the laundry since this conversation, and while it is kind of getting done, it's not getting done properly or efficiently, and it is starting to pile up. And we're talking both dirty laundry overflowing the baskets and clean unfolded laundry piling up on all the massage tables. When I walk past the nonsense nonsense, I just glance over and keep it moving. It is hard for me to leave things undone because I do have a strong work ethic, but since he doesn't pay me to do laundry and has made it clear he would rather overpay me to answer phones, while they scroll their social media and stare into dead space, and instead of me actually running the business, that's exactly what I'm doing. And you know what? I'm curious how long it will take him before he tries to come back and tell me I'm not doing my job because the laundry is in shambles. Because at that point, I'll say something like, "But sir, I'm doing exactly what you told me to do," or should I say exactly what my own employees have told me I need to be doing, and you agree with them. At this point, I feel like they think I'm their employee because of how he handled it. The root of the problem is that they only get paid $15 an hour, and it's a high volume place, so the workload is intense, and I've never denied that. I do help them often, and I've always gone to bat for them, asking him to pay them more and begging him to budget for 2 people to be at the front desk during the busiest hours, as it certainly is a 2-person job. But I did not sign up or accept the position of a receptionist. I'm 48 and these girls are in their 20s. I will help when I can, but I'm the manager and there are a lot of things I have to prioritize. But you know what? If he wants to pay me far more to do the same job others are paid $15 an hour to do, then who am I to argue? As the business starts to fall apart since I'm not handling other things anymore, which by the way, how can I, when I have to perform their job with them the whole time, he will start to realize how much I was in fact doing when he and his receptionist team thought that I was only doing laundry all day. Okay, I really like this mentality, but I don't think it's gonna last, because I don't think he's gonna come back to you begging for you to fix the problems. If anything, he'll probably just fire you and get someone else for cheaper and probably save a bunch of money while also not getting a second receptionist at the front desk during the busy hours. Like, I really only see this as a net negative, and I don't think this is gonna go well for you. So in my opinion, if I was in your job, I would be finding another job. And sure, you're getting paid really well to be a receptionist for now, but I guarantee you that could change at the drop of a hat, especially with an owner who's so stupid they don't realize what they're doing. So I think it's in your best interest to find something else, because this guy could easily flip the table on you in a heartbeat. I'm considering breaking up with my girlfriend after she catfished me as a prank on Instagram, because after she impersonated one of my female coworkers under the guise that she would somehow catch me cheating, I now feel completely betrayed, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So me and my girlfriend have been together for 2 years. I always thought she was very sweet and kind, and I really appreciate how much she loves me, and while she sometimes got a little jealous, I didn't think it was a big deal. Deep down, maybe I even enjoyed being doted on like that. It made me feel really attractive, which I never really felt like I was. Recently, we attended a work event organized by my company, and we met one of my coworkers there. She works at a different branch, and we hardly ever talk outside of work emails and calls, but we get along well enough. This event was my girlfriend's first and only time meeting this coworker. On the way back from the event, and the following day, my girlfriend was acting a little weird. She kept asking me about a work wife, and asking if I thought my coworker was pretty and other stuff about her. I knew my girlfriend could get kinda jealous, and I did my best to calm her down. No, that woman isn't my work wife. I don't follow her on any socials. I don't even have her personal phone number. I don't think she's more beautiful than my girlfriend, and I'm happy with my girlfriend, etc. and so on. Eventually, she seemed to relax and things got back to normal. Well, a few weeks later, out of nowhere, I got a follow request on Instagram from my coworker, and it's important to note that my account is on private. I approved the request and I followed her back as her account was also private. That account was almost nothing but a few pictures of her in swimsuits uploaded very recently. And at the time, I didn't really check, and I honestly didn't even scroll her account at all. It didn't look like anything overtly scandalous, just normal vacation pictures, but there was nothing but vacation pictures. It seemed weird, but I didn't really care. Then a few days later, she direct messaged me on Instagram. It was just small talk and I replied, but it wasn't flirty or anything like that in my opinion. She kept reaching out every few days, and eventually it did seem like it kinda got flirty. I told her I felt this was inappropriate and that I was in a relationship, and I would appreciate it if we kept things professional, which she seemed okay with. Well, my girlfriend seemed extra affectionate the days after that, and while I didn't suspect anything in real time, you can all probably see exactly where this is going. Still, at the time, I was happy, and my girlfriend even seemed to be better regarding her jealousy. But then, last week, I got a follow recommendation on my Instagram, and it was my coworker's real account. This one wasn't private, and was just a normal Instagram account, and just by looking through it, that was where those swimsuit pictures came from. Here they were, just a part of her normal Instagram account, which contained mostly normal pictures, and not just ones with her in a swimsuit like the other account had. It was then that I put 2 and 2 together. Before confronting my girlfriend, I talked to that coworker at work, and I asked her for her Instagram account, and she gave me her normal one, which I followed. And indeed, she gave me no indication that we ever interacted on Instagram before. So it became clear I was being catfished. I then confronted my girlfriend, and at first when I was trying to be subtle, she denied everything outright. Then she shifted to gaslighting me about it and saying that it was just a prank, or she would say that it was a test, or that because she was cheated on before, she just needed to know that she could trust me. I told her that her being able to trust me was great, but how am I supposed to trust her now? She said that made no sense and kept deflecting no matter how hard I tried to explain, going so far as to question how I even knew it was her if I wasn't cheating on her with my coworker. I told her that this was unfair and manipulative, and that I needed some time, and I just went home. She's been texting me and calling me ever since, saying that I'm ruining a great relationship over nothing, that I'm overreacting, and that when I finally realize how much she loves me, it might be too late, and it's not fair for me to throw away everything we've built over my stupid coworker. But to me, that just feels incredibly manipulative, and like she doesn't get what she did wrong at all. So I'm conflicted between wanting to just cut and run or giving it another go. After all, we have been happy together for 2 years, but also, can I trust that we can rebuild something after this? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh wow, your girlfriend literally decided to go behind your back and catfish you, and then still somehow blame it on you. Like she's literally trying to be like, oh, this is nothing, you're ruining our relationship. But it's like, no lady, you did that. You're the one that did that the second you tried to catfish your boyfriend. This is so stupid, it's not even funny. If anyone's insecure and weird about this relationship, it's your girlfriend. Like this is the worst case of self-sabotaging I've ever seen in my life. And worst of all, it's completely self-inflicted. She literally did this to herself for no good reason other than her own insecurity and paranoia. Like you should not have to be tested like that in any way, shape, or form. Because I know that would not sit well with me at all. I would be questioning everything just like the original poster is. Because it would immediately make me wonder if this is really someone I want to stay with. Is this really the person I want to spend the rest of my life with? Or even get married to? And she even did this without any care of like consequences or anything like that. Like screw that, you could have lost your job over this. Because in my opinion, anyone who has to test their partner's loyalty by making fake accounts just to like instigate some kind of cheating situation, in my opinion, probably should not be in a relationship in the first place. You're clearly not in a healthy place in life, and this is not fair for the original poster or other people who go through this. So no, you're not the jerk here, and honestly, I think you can do a lot better than your current girlfriend, because her actions, in my opinion, are just a little too sketchy. Am I the jerk for telling my autistic brother to stop correcting me on something that I know more than him about? Because right now, my mom says that I was out of line, but at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female, and I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. And psychology also happens to be my 14-year-old autistic brother's special interest. I was visiting my family this past week, and my brother and I have been chatting about different interesting psychology things a lot. However, he likes to use social media as his prime source of information, which is fine, as long as you do more research before believing and repeating things. But he tends to just believe anything that he hears without fact-checking, especially if it's something that intrigues him. So it happened multiple times, where he would throw me a fun fact that was false, or he would correct me on something that I was telling him about with misinformation that was just not true. Now, I'd always been super gentle correcting him and reminding him to double check his information. Even though I did find it quite annoying, I never was harsh with him at all. But last night at the dinner table, we were talking about the structures of the brain and how psychology and medical things overlap. The conversation was mainly between my mother and I, as she's a doctor and could speak for the medical part of this, while my brother was just tuning in. We were talking about strokes and how it affects the brain, and I began explaining to my father about the left and right brain and how they control opposite sides of the body, when my brother stopped me to say that I was wrong and that it was the opposite way. I once again gently corrected him, but he was insistent that he was correct. I then reminded him that I was the one with the degree in this topic, and then he dropped it. Later after dinner, my parents, my brother, and I were all in the living room watching a movie that was on TV. During one of the commercial breaks, my brother brought up the left and right brain thing again, going on about how I was supposedly incorrect. I was really just done with the topic, and I was getting a little tired of being constantly corrected with misinformation. And I do not think that I said this in any aggressive or rude way, but my exact words were to say to him, I'd really appreciate it if you'd quit correcting me when you're incorrect. Your source of information is random people on the internet. My sources are textbooks, experimental documentation, and the DSM-5. My brother had then stormed off to his room, upset by what I had said, and my mother told me that I should have just let him have his way because he's autistic and just a kid, and in no way was I trying to attack my brother or be selfish and full of myself. I genuinely just wanted him to have the correct information, but the constant correcting began to get on my nerves just a little bit. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, you are not the jerk. Your brother is literally wrong. He's spouting off wrong information all because he read it on the internet instead of getting it from like a verified source. And I don't know about you, but that's something that absolutely needs to be corrected. And also, why should your brother get a pass just because he's autistic? Like, in my opinion, that's an awful excuse, and that just doesn't stand. There's no reason that should be used as some kind of like get out of jail free card, because that doesn't help your brother in the slightest. Because in my opinion, letting him get his way is just not going to do him any favors. And I think you did the right thing by patiently and kindly telling him that you didn't want to talk about it and that he needs to get better sources than social media. An entitled Karen takes all the good seats at a cafe as she literally goes on a power trip and takes way more seats than she and her daughter are ever going to use. But thankfully, karma came their way in the form of a stubborn couple who wasn't willing to take her crap, resulting in one of the funniest interactions I've ever seen in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so my local Barnes & Nobles in Texas is not that large. The cafe has seating for about 30 people tops, with most of those at 6 to 7 tables away from the window. We also only have one counter across from the barista station with seats for about 4 people. The counter is immediately to the left as soon as you enter the cafe area. These are close to the window, and they are coveted seats if you can't get a table alongside the window. Being a Barnes & Noble nerd, I always know when to show up and get a good table close to the windows. Well, I managed to snag one of those tables as always, with the window to my right, the counter seating directly in front of me, and the register and serving area to my right. I was happy to get a window side table as I often cannot, and not have to sit at the counter with its 4 stools. As I was enjoying my coffee and magazines, I noticed that the 4 stools at the counter were only half occupied. There was a tallish 50-something-year-old blonde woman and her 17-year-old daughter 2 stools away. The trouble is, they had plopped their clothing and backpacks on the other stools as some way of taking up 4 stools instead of the 2 that they needed. The daughter was perusing the store and wasn't even using her seat, but the mom had them taken with backpacks and a purse to save them. I actually saw a couple come in and were denied a seat at the counter due to the mom telling them that those seats were occupied. And when the daughter eventually returned, mom seemed to celebrate her victory with her. After the second time I saw this happen, I put away my magazine and I decided to have some fun. When a third couple came in and were driven away by this Karen, I smiled and waved them over. I offered them to take my seat, and for reference, I was taking up 1 seat at a 4-man table, and after they sat down, I explained to them what was going on. They were a little put out by being denied a decent seat at the counter, and it was then that they decided to take my advice. So they walked 10 feet back to the counter and they pulled out the stools, only to be told by mom that those seats were taken. But you know what? They plopped their butts in the seats anyways, and they told this Karen that they'd be happy to move when the owner returned. Well, the mom indignantly took the backpacks and the purse from the left 2 seats and pouted for a while just looking around. The daughter came back and a smallish argument ensued, and this stubborn couple offered to move when the others came by to reclaim their seats. Well, this entitled Karen was very put out and was angry that her scam was not working. She wound up putting both backpacks and daughter's purses on the other 2 seats, and this couple ignored her and just enjoyed their coffee. And naturally, she left very soon after that. After that, this stubborn couple turned around and gave me a smile with a thumbs up. And honestly, I was so glad to witness this happening. Okay, I love when stuff like this happens because I can't stand when people save the good seats for themselves only to not use them. If they had someone else coming along, I would completely understand, but it seems like they just wanted like elbow room, even though I'm assuming there was probably plenty of space by those spots. So they were just being selfish, like that's all this comes down to. They didn't want to share their seats with anybody else and they wanted it all for themselves. And that's not fair. Like, I don't care how you stretch it, that is not fair for anybody else coming in. So honestly, I love the fact that you kind of coordinated this in a roundabout way, because this Karen and her daughter absolutely deserved it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for handing over my dad's tax returns over to my mom just to help her extend her alimony with her husband? Because right now my dad says I breached his privacy, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 37-year-old male and I spent most of my adult life working for my parents' company. It's a small but successful firm that does litigation support, architectural design, project management, and engineering consulting. Our whole family helped build it. After school, weekends, holidays, you name it, we were there. And I started working there full-time right after high school. My parents had a rocky marriage, mostly due to my father's chronic infidelity. He used the company's resources to carry on multiple affairs and even hired ladies of the night for himself and for his clients, if you know what I mean. When my parents divorced in 2011, all of this came out. My sister and I sided with our mother, while our older half-brother, who is my mom's son from a previous marriage, took our father's side. Fast forward, and a couple of years later, I split with my son's mother. My father then hired a lawyer for her, and not just any lawyer, but the wife of a longtime client of his who had also been a close confidant during his divorce. This wife and husband legal team took my custody case all the way to to trial. During the trial, it had came out that they had been given my privileged medical records by my father. The judge admonished the attorney but didn't pursue any serious disciplinary action. Ultimately, we ended up with split custody after they racked up over $140,000 in legal fees. I then ended up suing my father over the breach of my privacy, and after 2 years of litigation, I dropped the case because my sister convinced me to, all for the sake of our mom. In exchange, my father agreed he would help her out as she aged and dealt with health issues. Fast forward to now, and my father makes over $1.2 million a year and has completely cut my mom off from alimony. She has health problems and no other income. Recently, he left his tax returns open on my laptop, so I gave them to my mom so she could try to extend her alimony. Now, my father says I crossed a line and that I'm violating his privacy and being vindictive, but I feel like my dad's the one who broke trust first years ago. And just to be explicitly clear, my father handed the documents to me, and by doing so, he waived his privacy rights. The taxes show that his income has been 3 times the amount his alimony was based on since about 2 years prior to his divorce. And so on that end, I feel like it's just incredibly dishonest. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, I can't speak on any legality of any of this because I just don't know the details of what is and isn't legal. But seriously, if I was in your shoes, I can't say I wouldn't do the same thing. Your dad literally screwed over your mom. He cheated on her God knows how many times, and then has the audacity to not even give her the amount that she's owed. So no, with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk here, because I think if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for having Dr. Pepper in my water bottle at the gym? Because after my boyfriend drank some of it, he spit it out in a fit of rage, furious that it wasn't water like he was expecting. And at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female, and I want to start off by saying that I love Dr. Pepper. I probably drink like a can a day, which I totally know isn't great, but I eat super healthy and I go to the gym religiously, which is where this incident took place. Me and my boyfriend, who we will call Charlie, usually work out together. Yesterday evening, before we went to the gym, I filled up my water bottle with Dr. Pepper. I hadn't had one yet that day, and I was craving it so bad. If I needed actual water at the gym, I was just planning on drinking from the water fountain, so my boyfriend didn't have limited water because I was bringing an extra. I made sure to tell Charlie this as he really doesn't like Dr. Pepper, and I didn't want him drinking some from my water bottle. And for reference, we sometimes will take sips from each other's bottles. He just said, okay, no problem, and that he'll avoid my bottle. Well, fast forward to when we were wrapping up at the gym, and Charlie had just had an intense set and just grabbed the first bottle he saw, which just so happened to be mine. Before I could even look or react, he was spitting the Dr. Pepper out on the ground. He was sputtering angrily at me and told me that it was such a stupid idea to put Dr. Pepper in my bottle and that I should have yelled to him when he picked it up. I told him I'm sorry that he had a mouthful of Dr. Pepper when he was so out of breath and just wanted some water, but that I didn't have any time to tell him because he was just too quick and I was focused on counting my own sets. Well, he wouldn't take this as an answer and just stormed off, which was super embarrassing as I was the one who had to clean up his mess. By the time I ran out of the gym to catch up with him, he had already messaged me that he had left in an Uber. He's only sent me one text message since yesterday, saying that we'll talk about my Dr. Pepper thing later. I'm literally so confused and I just need to know if I was in the wrong, because right now I'm not sure what to do. Okay, your boyfriend is kind of a weirdo. You literally told him, hey, I have Dr. Pepper in this bottle, don't drink it. And he even acknowledged like, okay, no problem, I'll avoid it if I see it. But then he turns around, probably in front of a bunch of people, drinks a Dr. Pepper and then spits it out on the ground like a toddler. Like, hey, guess what, stupid? You literally knew it was there, but you decided to ignore it anyways and then embarrass your girlfriend in the process? Like, what's going on right now? That's not fair. You can't treat someone like that. And for him to even walk away and make you clean up after him? Like, no, I don't think so. That is not okay. That kind of behavior is super immature and there is no good reason to be doing that. And your boyfriend absolutely owes you an apology. Like, I'm sure you weren't the only ones in the gym and I'm sure other people were watching, and to have someone do an outburst like that is so cringy and so weird. So no, you're not the jerk for bringing Dr. Pepper to the gym. You literally warned him about it and he still made a huge deal about this. So seriously, the only thing that he needs to discuss is how he's going to apologize to you for the way that he treated you, because that, in my opinion, was completely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for asking my neighbor to pay for damages for his trampoline that flew onto my yard during a storm and literally damaged my fence and my yard? Because right now he's claiming it's not his problem, and at this point, I'm honestly super frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so today at about 5:00 p.m., I got text messages from our great next door neighbor who said that a trampoline came flying in a storm and damaged our fence and our barn behind our house. I assessed our security system via my cell phone, and I found out the trampoline came from the neighbors across the street. Now, as a side note, we are not friends with these neighbors, but up to this this point have had no problems with them. I inspected the damage and our fence was destroyed and almost completely knocked flat. The trampoline hit the barn so hard, it dented the metal walls and broke 2 panels on the garage door. There were all sorts of other minor scraping along the sides of the barn as well. As I was surveying the damage, the husband of the neighbors across the street came walking up the driveway, and he did not appear concerned at all, and more than anything, he seemed really annoyed. I held our broken gate open for him to enter the yard and look at the damages with me. After reviewing the damage together, he asked me what I wanted to do about the damages. I was still a little shocked, and I said, well, your trampoline caused the damages, so you are responsible. And I'm guessing the damages were between $5,000 to $10,000. The fence was decorative aluminum to appear like wrought iron, and the damage section was maybe 4 to 5 panels and cost us approximately $4,000 3 years ago. The garage door was insulated and was around $3,000 2 years ago, but I have no idea how to estimate the cost of repair for the dented, scraped, and damaged metal walls of the barn, which again is only 2 years old. The neighbor across the street then said, well, it's all damage to your property, so you should put all the damages through your insurance. Well, I was again shocked and incredulous at the audacity of this person. I then told him I'm an attorney and I actually am in my state. Your failure to secure the trampoline caused it to fly into my yard and destroy my fence and damage my barn. I'm not putting a claim on my insurance because I don't want my premiums to increase. I have great insurance and an umbrella due to the ponds on the property, and I have a separate rider for the barn just to be safe. And due to my profession, I made sure I have great insurance. I then told him I can either get quotes to fix the damages that you can pay for, or you can make a claim against your homeowner's insurance. He said to me, well, I'm not paying cash and I'm not making a claim against my insurance. This was an act of God. So I said to him, okay, I'm sorry you see it that way, but my firm sues around 200 cases per week, and I'm not trying to brag, it's just a fact. So suing one more will not be that difficult. Well, it's then that my neighbor decided to finally agree to put his homeowners on notice and exchange his phone number with me. Several colleagues and my mentor said he probably never put the trampoline on his insurance, and an unreported trampoline can lead to cancellation of his homeowner's insurance. So seriously, am I the jerk for insisting that he pay for the damages caused by his trampoline flying onto my property, regardless of how it happened? Because right now, I'm not sure what to do. You are not the jerk in the slightest. This guy is 100% responsible in my uneducated and unqualified opinion, and I can't believe he would try to dodge responsibility like that. Seriously, this isn't an act of God. This guy didn't tie down his trampoline and now it hit your property. Like seriously, this falls on his shoulders entirely. So yeah, hopefully he gets the picture because I'm sure this is an easy case for someone like yourself, especially when you handle stuff like this on a daily basis. My parents control just about every aspect of my life, and despite the fact that I'm 20 years old and still in college, and also unfortunately still living with them, I feel like I'm at my breaking point, as I feel they're changing me for the worst, leaving me in a situation where I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for my entire life, my parents have been strict. I've always been known as the friend who can't stay out past 8 o'clock p.m. or can't do this or that unless my parents know one of my friends personally and really well, like if they were good friends with my parents. When I was under 18 years old, my parents wouldn't let me hang out with a friend unless they came over to my house first, and my parents met them to see what they were like as a person. Also, there were some things that they were particularly strict about, like with money. When I was 18, I went to my senior prom, and when I was going to buy my dress, my dad gave me a $100 bill to go get a prom dress after school one day. He specifically told me to keep the money in my car, but instead I kept it zipped up in my backpack all day. And when I told him that, my God, he flew off the handle and threatened to take away my money because I'm apparently irresponsible with it. He said a kid could have stole my money or I could have lost it, but I'm responsible with money, or at least I thought I was. I felt better having $100 on me rather than in my car, but I don't know. I guess I should have just left it locked in my car. I remember crying at the lunch table while he was chewing me out on the phone, and my friends were all very concerned. My dad said because I didn't listen to his specific directions, I didn't deserve to go to prom or even carry money around. I almost lost that privilege, but I did end up going to prom even though he complained about it the entire night. He told me he likes a daughter who is loyal and obeys his commands, and I did the opposite of that day. I also wasn't a bad kid at all in school. Teachers looked up to me and I tutored other students. I had nearly a 4.0 GPA, but strangely, my parents still treat me like some kind of dumb teenager who doesn't know anything. It's frustrating trying to prove to your parents that you are a responsible adult, and then you make a small mistake that just really disappoints them. Flash forward to now, and I'm 20 years old in community college, still living with my parents, and nothing much has changed. I have a part-time job now, but my parents are still strict. I cannot stay out after 11 o'clock p.m. now unless I have a good reason to be out that late. I still cannot hang out with certain friends or go certain places if they they think those people are bad influences on me, or if the place I'm going to is a ripoff or too far away to travel, as they would put it. They also say that my life revolves around theirs. Any plans I make affects theirs for the day, and most of the plans they make, in my honest opinion, aren't even that important. Like just little house projects that keep themselves busy with, for example, yard work or working on the car, cleaning, and stuff like that. And they always want my help with these things, and when I tell them I have a test to study for or an assignment to complete, they say I should have been proactive and got it done before the day they needed my help on one of their projects. Anyways, a few days ago, I started a new relationship with this guy, and he is really awesome to me. He treats me well, he is super kind and respectful, and is willing to put up with my strict parents. I'm just afraid the relationship won't last long because of how strict my parents are. I told my mom I have a boyfriend now, and she was disappointed in me about it, and went on this lesson about how I need to be responsible and not ruin my life, and why I should wait until I'm 25 to date anybody. However, she did wish me the best of luck and hope for the best, whilst also expressing her disapproval of it. As for my dad, I'm not even gonna bother telling him about my relationship for now, because I know he will have a big problem with it. If I mentioned that I was in a relationship, he would immediately chew me out and force me to break up with the person I was with. It was either that or make him come over so he can meet him first and then see if he's even a good guy for me. Then he forces us to break up anyways, because apparently I'm too young for a relationship and should wait until I'm 35 to date anybody, because I'm not mature enough in my 20s to make a decision like that. I don't want to keep my boyfriend a secret from my dad, but I also don't want my dad to disown me and look down on me for being in a relationship. Now that I'm 20, I just want my parents to stay out of my personal business at least. They always want to know what I'm up to, where I'm at, who I'm with, etc. I just want to be able to enjoy myself without them getting into my business constantly. Even when I don't get out of class or work on time, they call me until I answer the phone and ask why I didn't call. I guess I should be grateful that they care, but I feel like there's a point where it becomes more overbearing and stunting my growth as an individual rather than being good parents. Now, I always have them in the back of my mind whenever I'm planning things or wanting to do something all by myself. I feel like I became the person they want me to be and not who I want to be. And at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Okay, this sounds miserable, and I would not want to live in that kind of environment. I mean, think about it. These people are seriously locking you down and not allowing you to do anything with your life. Now, I know for me, if I was in that situation, I would 100% be planning to move out. And from the sounds of it, the original poster is trying that right now. They don't have a lot of money and they're trying to save up so they can get an apartment somewhere. So hopefully that happens sooner than later, because what you're describing with your parents sounds absolutely miserable. And I know personally, I would not want to put up with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for refusing to split parking costs with my roommate after she made a big fuss over nothing? Here's what happened. Okay, so here's the situation. My roommate and older sister, let's call her Kay, demands that we split the parking for our apartment, even though she is the only one with a car. We recently moved into a new apartment, and we lived together before this in a different apartment, but for safety reasons, we had to move to our current place last month. Our lease provides 2 covered parking spots, but we have to have 2 cars registered under our apartment in order to get 2 parking passes. Since I don't have a car, as mine got stolen a few months ago, only she has got a parking pass. She had a talk with me right after we signed the lease to this apartment, where she, very condescendingly, told me that I was not going to get my parking pass because I don't have a car, and it would stay as a guest-only parking pass. Despite the aggressive tone she used, I agree with her until she told me that I would not be able to let my boyfriend borrow it when he sleeps over. After that talk, I told her I would not be paying for parking if I do not get to use my half however I please, and then we just left it at that. Fast forward, and we just got our first monthly bill, and I sat her down to talk about how much each of us had left to pay since we've both been paying it off throughout the month of March. I started by subtracting parking costs from the total and then dividing it by 2 in order to get my fair half. Kay then immediately started questioning my math, asking why I'm subtracting that amount, but I explained that's what we agreed on before moving into this new apartment. Kay claims that since the parking costs are the same for 1 or 2 passes, then that means I should have to pay for half. I immediately agreed to pay for half of it and informed her I will go register my boyfriend's car so I can get the second parking pass and use it however I want. I was even generous enough to tell her when her boyfriend visits, I can let him borrow it for the weekend as long as his visit doesn't overlap with my boyfriend visiting me. For added context, my boyfriend is a full-time student and also has a full-time job, which means he gets 1 day off a week, so he sleeps over the night before his day off and his night off and leaves the day after pretty early. Kay's boyfriend lives 6 hours away and doesn't get to visit as often, and we're talking maybe once every 6 to 8 weeks. Kay believes it's not fair for both of us to pay for parking, but only my boyfriend gets to park nearby, while her boyfriend has to park his work truck block further away from our apartment. I tried explaining to her that that was not the case, and that she would be paying for the parking pass she uses in her car, and I would be paying for my own parking pass to do with it whatever I pleased, including letting my boyfriend borrow it when he sleeps over. The argument just went in circles over and over again, with her saying it's not fair that her boyfriend doesn't visit as often as mine, and he would have to still park far away, but my boyfriend visits very often and gets to park nearby every time. I want to add that she had the master bedroom in our past apartment, and we didn't pay any difference in price because parking was already included in the rent, not an additional cost like here. I have the master in our current apartment because we had agreed it was a fair trade-off since she had the better bedroom last time, but now she's taking it back, claiming that since I have the better room, I should have to pay extra in rent, or I could just make it up by splitting parking costs while reaping none of the benefits. So truly, am I the jerk? Because right now I'm super frustrated. No, this is so dumb. Your roommate's being super selfish. They're trying to be like, yeah, but what about my boyfriend? And it's like, dude, your boyfriend is never here. He visits once every 2 months, whereas your boyfriend is here pretty much all the time. And it also only makes sense that you have a parking pass just in case you need one. Who knows, maybe you get the car back and you need that to get around. So no, you're not the jerk, and I think your roommate's being an idiot, and I don't blame you for being frustrated. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.